On August 29th, 2011, YouTube gaming superstar and ex-Game Grump John Tron released a video titled Starfox Adventures: Starfax Temperatures - John Tron. In this video, which has accrued 9.5 million views at the time of writing, John Tron has a tough time. He laments for the rare wear of old and the way Starfox used to be. John Tron, much like me, states that Star Fox 64 is one of his favorite games, based. However, he just doesn't like Star Fox Adventures very much, not based. John Tron decries Adventures' lack of, quote, artistic integrity.
Artistic integrity is important. In fact, it might just be omni-important, okay? I just put omni in front of that shit. That's how important it is.
This is a blasphemous act that rattles my bones to my soul. For the sake of fairness, I would like to take a moment to shout out all the things John Tron was correct about. The game does control like Zelda. There are a lot of barrels in this game, maybe too many. There is no variety in the R-Wing levels, a sacrosanct observation if I've ever heard one. And now, for the sake of the opposite of fairness, here are the things John Tron is wrong about. The dinosaur language is not stupid. The character models of the Star Fox gang do not look terrible. Walking around and talking to characters is not inherently worse gameplay than blaster shooting goons. Fox knowing Kung Fu is not stupid because the manual clearly states he's a Kung Fu master. Now come on, John, didn't you read the manual? The game does not take a turn for the worse when you get tricky. It actually takes a turn for the worse at Dragon Rock. The Boffum Dad is not ugly. They are cute little guys. I implore you to look at them. And, most importantly, this game does not lack artistic integrity. This video will not mention John Tron ever again. This video does not seek to engage in or to rebuke any arguments presented in the video Star Fox Adventures: Starfax Temperatures - John Tron. That's the last mention, I swear. Instead, this video serves to go into enormous detail about the whole kit and caboodle. That's right, the whole caboodle. We will endeavor to understand the history of Star Fox, the history of Dinosaur Planet, take a magnifying glass and scalpel to Star Fox Adventures' gameplay, review my personal sentimental attachments, look at the games which followed Star Fox Adventures, and arrive at the conclusion to the age-old question: is this game actually as bad as people say? Is Star Fox's leaving the cockpit as disastrous as many claim? This video will feature a standard video essay format with separate chapters that will explore different parts of this game's ethos. We will begin by unraveling the history of Star Fox to build a foundational knowledge of the franchise and understand the scope and importance of Star Fox Adventures. This segment is called Zero Fox Given. You will learn something today. During this history segment, I will cover all Star Fox games prior to Star Fox Adventures, then transition into a segment dedicated to the history of Dinosaur Planet / Star Fox Adventures itself, titled On the Topic of Extinctions, What Happened to That Dinosaur Planet? All sources for these history segments are located in the description section of this video. Once we understand the pertinent history, we can finally begin the actual review. My review for this game is titled Star Fox Adventures Review. They can't all be fun names, now can they? That's the subtitle. I just made up my mind that's the subtitle of the review, so it is a fun name. We did it. We will begin the review with an overview of the game's overall structure and pivot directly into a breakdown of all the footage I captured in this review. During this portion, we will analyze the percentage breakdowns of all major gameplay modalities. This segment is called Struck. Sure, we can cover this. Upon completion of the structure review, we can then begin the review proper. The segments of the game review are as follows: Story, Exploration, Puzzles, Combat, and Technical. You can find the fun names of these segments on the screen now. The next segment is a short essay regarding the implementation of all Star Fox elements in this game. It is called The Star Fox of It All. We will then peruse the aftermath of Star Fox Adventures and discuss modern Star Fox releases. This segment is called The Future Faux Pas. or the future Fox Pass. This joke reads a lot better than it speaks, so look at the screen. It's clever, right? Pretty good? Finally, we will conclude with a personal essay detailing my own history with Starfox Adventures. This segment is called The Past is Now, Old Man. The Future is Then, Little Baby. After that, we will have covered all major bases and thoroughly dissected this monster baby from tip to toe. Between certain chapters, I have created segments which I refer to as brief asides, which cover some topics which do not cleanly apply to any of the other major categories. Also, the name of this video's first few minutes is The Spiritual Destruction of Jonathan Jafari. It's up to you to determine how much of that part was a joke. Have fun. Originally, I intended for my essay of personal anecdotes to appear as my lead-off segment, but after considerable consideration, I have placed that beast in the rear. In order to not completely deprive me of me time, let me tell you some facts. My father purchased 2 GameCube games at release, and Starfox Adventures was one of them. I have played this game 3 times, once as a child, again as a stinky college baby, and literally just now. I love this game, let me tell you why. Also, and this is my final also, I did not watch any other creators' videos about this game while writing this script, nor did I review any other reviews. I did this to avoid subconsciously jockeying the steeds of others. Since then, I have read all reviews by the major outlets for the purpose of fleshing out the criticism portion of the history segment. I have also watched one video about this game, and as it would be, in that video, the person also mentions JonTron in the first minute. I swear I didn't steal from you. Let's make that clear. We're both just saucy girls with smart little brains. If you feel like I stole from you, please keep watching. I think you'll change your mind very quickly once you hop on this full-speed nonsense train to nowhere. I'm writing this introduction at the very end of the scripting process because everybody knows you write the first part last. Now let's begin. Originally, I wrote a huge blurb giving many details about myself, which I've determined is not the point of this video. This is a Starfox video. All the little personal things are going to be fun asides that are sprinkled in throughout. So, instead of reading you a second essay about me, we will forego that me time for a brief recollection of all the things Starfox related I did in preparation for making this video. So, allow me to show my commitment to this bit by allowing me to talk about that process. In preparation, I did the following. I played through Starfox on the Super Nintendo, Starfox 2 on the Super Nintendo Mini, Starfox 64 on the N64, Starfox 64 3D on the Nintendo 3DS, Starfox Command on the Nintendo DS, Starfox Zero on the Nintendo Wii U, Sin and Punishment on the Nintendo 64, Star Wars Rogue Squadron on the Nintendo GameCube, and Starfox Adventures, obviously, on the Nintendo GameCube. I purchased the following, and this one hurts me. A Mayflash HDMI adapter for the Nintendo Wii, which broke almost immediately. Wii component cables, and a component to HDMI adapter to make up for that broken Mayflash HDMI adapter. An Elgato 4KX capture card, which no longer works. Oh no. A NZXT Signal HD60 capture card, which does work. Starfox Zero and Starfox Command bundle for the Nintendo Wii U. Nintendo Power Starfox Adventures Player's Guide. I did not purchase Starfox Adventures for this video because I already own 2 copies because I am based. I read the following. The Starfox comics Farewell Beloved Falco. I also attempted to read the Lilat Wars comic but could not find the full version, and I definitely clicked on some sketchy links along the way. Please don't hack me. The Nintendo Power Starfox Adventures Player's Guide, which served as better nighttime reading than my previous bedtime book, Blood Meridian. I watched the internet cartoon series A Fox in Space, The Star Fox Zero promotional OVA animated by Production IG and Wit Studio titled Star Fox Zero: The Battle Begins, as well as all trailers I could find for Star Fox Adventures. I would have also watched the now cancelled Claymation Star Fox TV series, but in Star Fox's galaxy, nobody can have cool, nice things. Star Fox in Japan and North America, or Star Wing in PAL regions, released on the Super Nintendo Entertainment System between February and June 1993 in Japan, North America, Europe, and Australia. Designed by series creator Shigeru Miyamoto, directed by Animal Crossing creator Katsuya Eguchi, with character designs by Takeya Imamura, in partnership with Argonaut Software, and featuring, for the first time on a Nintendo home console, the most fanciest polygonal graphics 1990s dollars could buy. This graphical splendor in excess was thanks in large part due to the technical innovations brought on by the introduction of the Super Nintendo Super FX chip, developed by Argonaut Software. But why space animals? Well, with most things Star Fox, the answer stems from the peculiar mind of one gaming legend, Shigeru Miyamoto, who after seeing Imamura's original American comic-inspired designs, let loose one bonkers noggin question. How about animal characters? Imamura simply responded, "Come again?" So, Imamura got to designing, taking inspiration from the nearby Fushimi Inari Taisha Shrine, which was located next to their offices. Imamura created a fox character. In the process, Imamura also created a rabbit character, a toad, and a pheasant. You heard me right, Falco, my beloved hype machine, is a pheasant, not a falcon. What a twist. In an interview with Argonaut Software's founder, Jez San, San stated that the Super FX chip was so powerful in terms of graphics and gameplay that they joked that the Super NES was just a box to hold the chip. Despite this claim, only 8 games utilized it. Argonaut Software would go on to release games such as Buck Bumble, the Croc series, and the PlayStation Harry Potter games. Argonaut Games went defunct in 2004, but Jess San returned to the gaming scape in 2024. Gameplay of Star Fox on the Super Nintendo consists of a linear level progression, where players take control of the titular Star Fox McCloud, and by extension, his R-Wing, to tackle a series of rail shooting challenges. The game offers 3 paths, each representing a different difficulty level. Star Fox was released to critical and commercial success. The game was lauded for its graphical capabilities and overall gameplay, with the game receiving the award for Best Shooting Game in 1993 by Electronic Gaming Monthly, and arriving on many publications' Best Nintendo/Super Nintendo Games of All Time lists. Commercially, depending on the source, the game either sold just shy of 3 million copies, according to Nintendo PR information posted by Celine on the install base forums, or 4 million copies if you listen to Argonaut Software's numbers. Regardless of which number set is used, Star Fox remains the 10th highest selling Super Nintendo game. Star Fox was included on the 2017 special console release of the Super Nintendo Entertainment System Classic. With both critical and commercial success, it's only reasonable for Nintendo to continue this lucrative partnership with Argonaut and release a sequel as soon as possible. Star Fox 2. Released after I finished high school, but officially finished prior to my conception, Star Fox 2 for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System was released at the end of 2017 in Japan, North America, Europe, and Australia as part of the Super Nintendo Entertainment System Classics game roster. Star Fox 2 also has the odd distinction of being the most recently released game in the series. I mostly jest here. Technically, many other Star Fox games released before 2017. Hell, the game that is the central focus of this video released in 2001. Or 2002? I'll go back and check. So what happened? Why is Star Fox 2 clearly not the second released Star Fox game, and technically the most recently released game in the franchise? 2 major reasons are floated for this seemingly inexplicable wait. Number 1. The biggest, fanciest, baddest graphics had arrived on other consoles. In an interview with Nintendo Life, Argonaut Software's Dylan Cuthbert gave the following information. Quote, "It was the summer of 1995, and the PlayStation and Saturn were suddenly doing very well in Japan. The decision to cancel the game was made because they didn't want the old Gen 3D going up against the much better 3D of the next generation side by side. End quote. Cuthbert makes explicit mention of Ridge Racer, which Cuthbert compared to finally having, quote, arcade machines power in your home, end quote. The second reason for cancellation was the overall logistics of the endeavor. Starfox 2 required the use of the Super FX2, an upgraded version of the chip used in the original Starfox. This new chip offered twice the processing power, but at a higher production cost. Also, Nintendo had unveiled their newest, fanciest, most unabashed box of graphics and fun so far, the Nintendo 64. Shigeru Miyamoto, in an interview posted by Nintendo.com, said, quote, "The price was high, and the timing of the release was awkward, so we decided to cancel it and start from scratch with a new Star Fox game for Nintendo 64. Star Fox 2 was officially cancelled in the middle of 1995, despite the game being at, quote, 95% completion, end quote. With the game so close to 100%, Nintendo completed QA and localization regardless. And now we jump forward in time approximately 22 years to the release of the Super Nintendo Entertainment System Classic and the official release of Star Fox 2. Star Fox 2 shakes things up from its predecessor. No longer is the player placed on one of 3 predetermined linear paths, now action occurs on a real-time basis. Players maneuver their ships throughout the Lilat system to intercept Andross's attacks on the planet of Corneria. When making contact with an enemy on the map screen, gameplay is moved to either a first-person action shooting section or into a third-person action flying segment. During these third-person segments, players will control an R-Wing and another bipedal vehicle in rudimentary 3D platforming sections. Some of the DNA present in Star Fox 2 was later utilized in future releases, such as the inclusion of multiple vehicles, the Star Wolf team, and all-range mode in Star Fox 64, whereas the rudimentary RTS or real-time strategy segments would return in Star Fox Command on the Nintendo DS. Prior to this game's official release on the Super Nintendo Entertainment System Classic, incomplete ROM files circulated in emulation communities. I remember watching YouTube videos about this game when the likelihood of an official release looked like a pipe dream and another victim of lost media. This, funnily enough, would not be the last time the Star Fox series would create a lost media void worthy of deep exploration. In November of 1995 at Space World, Nintendo unveiled their first polygon-based console, the Nintendo 64, and alongside it a short video demonstration of Star Fox 64. Anticipation grew amongst games fans for Nintendo's next foray into the console realm. Due to a series of hardware and software issues, the console's initial release target of Christmas 1995 was rescheduled. The hype was so large, as were the expectations of a new Nintendo console, in conjunction with the belief the N64 would be a cheaper alternative to Nintendo's gaming competitors, Sega and Sony. Sega and Sony resulted in a dip in sales for Saturns and PlayStations. The console finally released in June 1996 in Japan, September 1996 in North America, and March 1997 in Europe and Australia. Star Fox 64 will land in players' homes not long after, with the game releasing in Japan, North America, and PAL regions throughout 1997. Star Fox 64 was met with both critical and commercial success. The game received an 88 on Metacritic from the game's critics and currently an 8.7 user score. Star Fox 64 sold over 4 million copies and is one of the best-selling Nintendo 64 games and easily the best-selling game in the Star Fox franchise. Gameplay consists of tight and well-paced rail-shooting action segments and a variety of vehicles. The game also has levels where players engage in all-range combat, which allows for a more free-form approach to combat, enabling Z-axis flight action. The game encourages multiple playthroughs similar to its predecessor, but instead of 3 set-in-stone routes in the original Star Fox 64 allows players to change their flight routes by completing secret challenges and levels. Replayability is further maximized by the scoring system, which encourages players who are enraptured by the gameplay mechanics to continue to improve on their fundamentals and increase their performance. This arcade-style flair, in conjunction with the game's excellent presentation, have resulted in Star Fox 64 capturing my heart and mind. In my opinion, Starfox 64 is one of the best games of all time. It's a game who revels in its simplicity, time mechanics, rogue-like elements, and arcade flair. How would Nintendo follow up this smashing success? Starfox mastermind Takaya Imamura pondered this question as well. And finally, we arrive at the game this video intends to tackle in depth, Starfox Adventures. This is where things get odd. Well, more odd, if you take into account all the weirdness surrounding Star Fox 2 on the Super Nintendo. Star Fox Adventures, famously, had a unique development cycle. The game initially began as two separate projects, which would eventually, fatefully, find coalescence. The first project was taking place at Nintendo headquarters. After the blockbusting major success of Star Fox 64, series art director Takaya Imamura began the process of working on a Star Fox sequel after receiving the go-ahead blessing from series creator Shigeru Miyamoto. Miyamoto made a point that instead of the typical rail-shooting action Star Fox was lauded for, they should instead, quote, try an adventure-style game, end quote. So Imamura and team began developing a game that would forgo convention and stomp into the future. Quote, the reason is that, for example, the 3D shooting mechanics were in a sense already perfected in Star Fox 64. But since we had established these characters in Star Fox 64, we thought it would be fun to allow them to be more freely controlled, which led us to Adventures. End quote. This new game idea was given the name Star Fox Adventures, a game that would redefine the audience's expectations of what a Star Fox game was capable of being. The team worked on identifying the best camera and control schemes, as well as what type of action they desired for the titular Fox. Imamura, in his incessant fiddling around, found issue with the third-person controls, stating, quote, shooting games, with the character displayed with that behind-the-back perspective, can be tough to play, can't they? But I really wanted to realize Fox fighting with a gun. So I continued pondering directions for the game to take. Imamura found inspiration for further development by attempting to emulate the Landmaster stages of Star Fox 64, finding specific joy in how the enemies fell from the sky and the ecstatic feeling of mowing down tons of foes. However, development hit a snag as many of the members of the project were pulled from their posts and placed on other projects like Mario and Majora's Mask. Imamura, for what it is worth, contributed beautifully to Majora as the art director, creating the character Tingle and capturing the beautiful, unrelenting dread of the impending moon's descent. Meanwhile, while Imamura and company were crafting one of the best games of all time, a team in England were prepping for their largest project yet, Dinosaur Planet. Development of Dinosaur Planet began after the release of Diddy Kong Racing, the finest Mario Kart clone to grace consoles up to that point. Originally, this action-oriented Zelda-inspired adventure planned to feature Diddy Kong Racing's Timber, but life happens and sometimes Timber loses his job, and from Timber's scattered crackling ashes arises, phoenix-like, the characters Saber and Crystal. Rare was setting their sights to the heavens with this one. This was to be their largest game to date and serve as a wonderful send-off to the Nintendo 64 and their legacy on the console. With two interwoven stories, interactable sidekick characters, and pristine polish cultivated over years of working on N64 hardware, Dinosaur Planet was ready to set the world alight. During E3 2000, IGN played a preview and had this to say of the N64's Dinosaur Planet, quote, "This is perhaps Rare's most ambitious game to date, and I'm definitely looking forward to having a more in-depth go with it." In a later article, they included, quote, "Stunning visuals are Rare's specialty, and Dinosaur Planet is no exception. In fact, this title is probably the developer's most graphically impressive title to date," end quote. To jam-pack stuff and fill all of the gaming goodness into a single purchasable cartridge, the Rare team decided to make use of the N64 expansion pack's 64 megabyte cartridge, the biggest cartridge available, the biggest graphics available, and the most well-seasoned and touted N64 developers. The stage was set for greatness. Move over, Ocarina of Time. Move over, Link. Move over, Zelda. Saber is here to party. Crystal is also here to party. And Dinosaur Planet on the Nintendo 64 is here to boogie, boogie, boogie. And then Shigeru Miyamoto had an idea. He always has the best ideas. When asked by an IGN reporter about the upcoming Dinosaur Planet, Miyamoto said, quote, "It looks really nice, doesn't it? I wish they would use Starfox characters, so that way they could use the title Starfox Adventures." Quote, he said jokingly. Quote, "Maybe I should call the team and talk about it." After the completion of Majora's Mask, everything changed. Through a series of internal meetings between Rare top brass and the Nintendo Dream Team, an agreement was reached to incorporate the Star Fox universe into the ethos of Dinosaur Planet. European games reporting outlet Console France broke the news to the world that Dinosaur Planet was renamed to Star Fox Adventures. The project was moved from the Nintendo 64 to the GameCube, and changes began with the intention of merging the best elements of the in-progress Dinosaur Planet with the in-progress Star Fox Adventures Imamura and team were working on. These changes started with removing the old and adding the Star Fox of it all. Saber, much like young Timber before him, was placed on the sacrificial altar and never seen again. Crystal survived the layoffs and cuts and made it through to the final version, but underwent a massive design change. Miyamoto always saw Star Fox as having a mature edge and wanted to hone that edge in the weirdest, grossest way possible. So he and Imamura, wanting to inject additional, quote, sex appeal and cater to a more mature audience, turned this crystal into what we now have today. To quote Miyamoto, being quoted by Imamura, quote, "Wouldn't it be good to add a slightly sexy character?" End quote. I, for one, know I'm feeling quite mature right now. How about you? Meanwhile, Imamura, now in the role of supervisor for the game, continued in his quest to arm the newly canonized main character, Fox McCloud, to the teeth and workshopped his third-person shooter gun game extravaganza, but the framework for a more Zelda-like experience prevented his wild dream from becoming reality. Imamura remained in touch with the team, even staying in Leicestershire, England, the home of Rare HQ. Other than some initial meetings and Imamura's temporary residence, the Rare team was mostly unbothered by Nintendo while in the development process. Issues arose during the development process, including troubles with switching from a cartridge to a disc-based medium, coding the AI for Tricky, and creating last-minute Star Fox touches like the R-Wing sections. Phil Tossell, in an interview with Nintendo Dream, mentions difficulties arising due to staff inexperience. Quote, "As a programming team, we were pretty inexperienced. Star Fox Adventures was the first full game that I had worked on, and this was true for almost all of the programming team." End quote. Inexperience paired with overwork, quote, "more than was healthy," end quote, and tight deadlines resulted in a game we all would receive on the Nintendo GameCube in Japan and North America in September 2002, and Europe and Australia in November 2002. Commercially, Star Fox Adventures rocketed out of the gate, selling 200,000 copies in Japan, and taking the title for fastest-selling GameCube game up to that point. The game would go on to sell nearly 2 million copies lifetime, and by the end of the GameCube's life cycle, would be the 13th highest-selling game on the console, right underneath the best Paper Mario, The Thousand Year Door, and right above my favorite 3D Sonic game, Sonic Adventure 2 Battle. Reception to Star Fox Adventures was largely positive, currently holding a Metacritic score of 82 based on 39 critic reviews. IGN gave the game a 9 out of 10, stating, quote, "Star Fox Adventures arrives as a truly excellent 3D action adventure for GameCube owners. It's a clear Zelda rip, and not quite as good, but that's okay in my book, as Rare has still done a pretty good job of it." End quote. GameSpot gave the game an 8.3, saying, quote, Starfox Adventures is simply a great game in most every respect." End quote. Many reviewers praise the game's visuals, audio, and strangely to me, its runtime, with GameSpot reviewers saying, quote, "Starfox Adventures is probably around twice as long as the typical action-adventure game these days." End quote. Well, ain't that something? Boy, how the times have changed. EGM, or Electronic Gaming Monthly, was more critical, awarding a 7.17, but still said, quote, "Despite being all over the map, it's still a must-play title." End quote. Eurogamer was the most critical of the major outlets, giving the game only a 6 out of 10, stating, quote, "Ultimately, Starfox is a poor imitation of greater games, most notably Zelda." End quote. And, quote, "Arguably, the most enjoyable aspect of Starfox Adventures is the actual space combat. Unfortunately, the game is so heavily weighted in favor of the third-person adventure sections that you often forget that it exists at all." End quote. We will talk more about this review in detail later on, because I have some big girl thoughts. After shipping Starfox Adventures to market, the Rare team did not have time to celebrate their Nintendo success, because on September 24th, 2002, literally one day after the North American launch of Starfox Adventures, Rare was sold to Microsoft for $375 million 2002 US dollars, which is about $700 million 2025 US dollars. Rare would go on to release timeless classics from Microsoft, including Grabbed by the Ghoulies, Conquer, Live and Reloaded, Cameo, Elements of Power, Perfect Dark Zero, Viva Pinata, Connect Sports Season 2, Connect Sports, Rivals, Battletoads 2020, Sea of Thieves, and JonTron's second favorite, Banjo-Kazooie, Nuts and Bolts. I mentioned him again, that's my bad. With all of this context now in place, I endeavor to begin to break this son of a gun down. Starfox Adventures, the once Dinosaur Planet, my favorite game as a little kid, and the black sheep of a legendary franchise. Allow me to editorialize for a moment. The Eurogamer guy can be summed up as such: some girls get it, and some girls don't. And I hate to break it to you, old man, you're some of the girls who don't. This reviewer thinks the on-rail R-Wing sections are the highlight of this game, whereas the exploration and traversal are dog water. Totally backwards in my opinion. This person can be the straw man for all players who bemoan straying from the Starfox path, the players who just wanted some shooty action fun and hate that the Zelda bug crawled into their Starfox cereal. Hello and welcome to the Ramble Bay. My name is Undetermined because I don't know what I'm calling this YouTube channel, and I have a microphone in my hand and some thoughts on my lips, and allow me to share them with you. So I just finished my initial edit of the video and have determined that one of the segments I made is not good enough, a little off topic, and ultimately doesn't serve my vision for this video. However, inside that segment is some very critical information that I believe you the viewer should have moving forward. So instead of completely rewriting that segment, I'm just going to give it to you straight. So allow me to condense this segment into just a few lines. Dinosaur Planet on the Nintendo 64 does exist. It has been decompiled and is playable if you go through improper channels. If you know what I mean, awesome. I don't know if I can talk about that stuff in detail on YouTube. Whenever I made this video initially, whenever I wrote my scripts, I didn't know it existed. I started by recording footage, analyzing that footage, and documenting it, and putting it into categories. After that, I then wrote my review segments, which is the bulk of this video. After that, I went back and did the history research. You've just watched the two history segments, the one for All Star Fox and the one for Dinosaur Planet. Like I said, Dinosaur Planet does exist, I just didn't know this. So I had already written a massive script without this context, which is a big fumble in my opinion. So in the segment I cut, I wrestle with this idea of thoroughness. Should I go back and play Dinosaur Planet on the Nintendo 64 through those improper channels to compare and contrast Star Fox Adventures against Dinosaur Planet, or should I stick to my guns and just look at Star Fox Adventures? Pros and cons, right? It'd be really awesome to compare and contrast these two things. It'd be incredibly thorough. I love this game. Inside of Star Fox Adventures is the spiritual composition and DNA of Dinosaur Planet. So to see laid bare that exact gameplay DNA and structure would be incredibly interesting. I love this game. It's one of my favorites. However, I had already dedicated an enormous amount of time to writing the scripts for this. To go back and play this game would require me to rewrite everything, to recontextualize my footage, and to basically make an entirely different video. The video I set out to make was a love letter and review of Star Fox Adventures on the Nintendo GameCube. If I were to go back and play Dinosaur Planet on the Nintendo 64 through those improper channels, I would no longer be making a review of Star Fox Adventures on the Nintendo GameCube. Instead, I'd be making a Star Fox Adventures versus Dinosaur Planet comparison video and analysis project. As far as I can tell, those already exist on YouTube. You can find them pretty easily, and if you don't want to look for them, they will be in the description so you can do it on your... They'll be in the description so they're more convenient for you to find. The big crux of the segment that's getting cut, the only real part that I really enjoy outside of the information that the decomp does exist, don't tell me about the decomp, I know the decomp exists, I'm just not playing it. The big piece of information was, I didn't grow up with Dinosaur Planet. I didn't play it in our childhood home. I didn't play it in college, I didn't watch these Let's Plays in middle school, and I definitely didn't play it just a few weeks ago. Excuse my burp, I just ate. I definitely didn't play it a few weeks ago. I played Star Fox Adventures on the Nintendo GameCube. Now, and in the past, the game that I love, the game that I want to talk about, is not Dinosaur Planet. Dinosaur Planet exists within this game, but it isn't the game. I hope that makes sense to you. I hope you understand why I'm deciding not to deep dive into this decomp project alongside Star Fox Adventures. I just want you to know I'm aware it exists. I think it's very cool. I love that people can play this if they want to. I'm going to at some point, but it will not be the target of this video. If you have interest in it, you can do some research and play the game yourself, or you can watch that comparison video. I recommend you do that after you watch this video, of course, or do it before. Here's the thing. Free country. Do what you want. I want you to find joy in whatever makes you happy, right? So if you want to watch that first, if that's what's tickling your pickle, go pickle tickle. If you want to finish this first, awesome. Please come back. I think there's some good stuff ahead of us. We've barely scratched the surface. Okay, I've been rambling for 5 minutes. The actual segment I cut was only about 6, so this is not saving that much time. I love you. It's been me. It's been you. We're still Star Fox Adventuring. Welcome to the review portion. Welcome to Structure and Data. Again, I love you. Good night. Star Fox Adventures at its core is an action-adventure game that relies on multiple gameplay modalities. The primary action occurs in on-foot exploration segments, which are intercut with moments of puzzle-solving, combat, and exploration. There are subcategories of these gameplay modalities. Individually, these areas have some flaws, but as a whole, they serve to create a game where its individual components are greater than the sum of its parts. Structure overall. This section will detail the defining segments of Star Fox Adventures on the Nintendo GameCube. The game begins with 2 distinct tutorial sections, which I have labeled as the Crystal Prologue and the Fox Preamble. These segments serve as a tutorial and an introduction to the world of Dinosaur Planet. Upon the completion of these tutorial segments, the player enters into the game's proper content loop. I'll refer to these gameplay loops from this point forward as Spellstone Cycles. Within each Spellstone cycle, the player is tasked with the following: exploring a new zone to make the acquaintance of a gatekeeper, returning to Thorntail Hollow Hub Zone to access the R-Wing, partaking in a rail shooting R-Wing section to arrive at one of the 4 world chunks, exploring and completing puzzle and combat sections to reach a final task, whether a boss fight or climactic atypical gameplay segment. During these, you will secure one of the 4 spellstones, then completing another rail-shooting R-Wing section to return to mainland Dinosaur Planet, followed by venturing to either the Volcano Force Point or Ocean Force Point temples. Volcano for spellstones 1 and 3, Ocean for spellstones 2 and 4. You'll do this to return the newly collected stones to their rightful places, then getting shuttled into a narrative arc which will result in the collection of a Krazoa spirit, then returning that Krazoa spirit to the Krazoa Palace, and finally returning to Thorntown Hollow to repeat this cycle again. This gameplay loop during its 4 repetitions is like clockwork. The game does a decent job of obfuscating this structure through the different activities, but upon careful consideration and review, its consistency is apparent. There are minor moments inside of each loop which bridge the gaps between the cycles proper. These can appear in the form of action puzzle segments, often requiring the player to assist the denizens of Thorntail Hollow. This structure and gameplay flow is very similar to what you would see in the 3D Zelda releases of the time. Link is introduced to a new area, completes a task to gain access to that area's dungeon, solve puzzles in that dungeon, and leaves with knowledge and abilities to explore a new area and repeat the cycle. It is clear why, before and upon release, many gaming outlets were drawing the Zelda comparisons. This is not the first time we will need to bring Zelda up in this review. The Zelda of it all is strong and percolates into every open pore available, from the mentioned structure, but also in its combat exploration and its puzzles. Overall, I find the game structure cohesive and coherent. The Zelda inspiration is obvious, but I do not fault the developers for sticking with a dependable, proven formula for their first action-adventure game. It most certainly is not broken, so why go and be a big smart guy who just has to fix it? The structure of the game lends itself over to the game's absolute best component, the exploration of the world. I will go into much more detail on this in the exploration segment of the review, but for now, the key takeaway is that through the game's backtracking moments, the player is offered an opportunity to become familiar with this game's greatest character, its world. Rocksteady structure enables clockwork-like precision in these exploratory backtracking moments and creates a sense of anticipation and excitement for returning to older areas with small, subtle, but necessarily added twists. Upon completion of my most recent playthrough, I opened up my editing software and began categorizing all of my footage into distinct categories. I did this for 2 reasons. Number 1, I wanted the opportunity to review my footage to assist me in writing this massive project script. It's 20,000 words, folks. What have I done? Why would I do this? And number 2, I wanted to provide as thorough a look in this game's structure as possible. Through my footage review, I determined there are 8 unique categories which all my footage belong to. Those are exploration, puzzles, combat, flight segments, cutscenes, menus, and the atypical, which I use as a category for gameplay mechanics which only occur once or twice and don't really cleanly fit into another area. Those of you who are good at counting or are very astute have recognized I've only listed 7 categories. You said 8, brother. What's the 8th? That's the sizzle reel footage. I captured a ton of B-roll to try to spice up this project. If we go ahead and take that sizzle reel B-roll and toss it out, my total gameplay comes out to 11 hours, 48 minutes, and 38 seconds of total footage. I would also like to go ahead and remove all non-critical menuing sections from the total count as well. There are a few mandatory menuing moments in this game, but I really luxuriated in all of these menus, as they're a good spot for me to go to the restroom or grab a water. I was really singularly focused on getting this gameplay captured, so I did not pause in my video. So if you remove that, you have 11 hours, 25 minutes, 13 seconds. I am considering all voice-acted dialogue on the Select a Planet screen as menu. If you're a psycho and you want to click through these, you're allowed to do so. You don't have to listen to the voice acting, but again, you're a psycho. It would shrink the runtime down, but why would you do that? A human being recorded that, and you should listen to it. Here's another preface. I'm the king of prefaces. There's so many prefaces in this fucking thing. So I'm just going to read the script verbatim. I want to put another preface in front of this section by creating a disambiguation. I have done my absolute gosh darndest to ensure my footage was properly sorted, but some gameplay moments are difficult to categorize due to the way they straddle the line between multiple categories. The main example I want to use to explain this difficulty in distinction involves the line between exploration and puzzle solving. For example, there are a handful of moments in this game where you are expected to perform a rudimentary fetch quest in a new area, such as finding these roots in the Snowhorn Waste for this big ol' fella, or digging up these gold bars for this long neck fella. I could see a legitimate argument for these segments being categorized as small-scale, simple puzzles. I see this logic, I do, but I do not favor it. Instead, I treat sections like this where the puzzle is digging up holes and corners as primarily exploration-focused, because without the primary exploration element, there is no puzzle, and I use big quotation marks on the word puzzle there. Also, there are these segments in the Dark Ice Mines where you're basically just running in a line in an action-oriented segment. I don't think these meet the qualification for puzzle, nor do they meet the qualification for combat, so they are also slotted in as exploration since I still consider running through these action and corridor segments as critical moments in exploring this new area. I mostly make these distinctions for my own sanity because if I wanted to dig deeper and make more trenches that are more specific, I could, believe me, but then footage review would have taken me the better part of this eternity, and I didn't want to do that. Goddamn, it's already taken me so long to do this thing as it is. So please keep that in mind as we review the total runtimes for the main gameplay styles. This is just a taste of the data, as well as a brief overview of how I categorize. Now, if you would allow me, I will become my alter ego, the Stats Gremlin. Good day, it is me, the Stats Gremlin. How do you do? I love the stats, I love the numbers. Let's proceed with the runtime for each category. The most prolific, the most largest and biggest category by a country mile is exploration. 4 hours, 22 minutes, and 50 seconds. This category, as mentioned, serves to encompass any gameplay moments where the primary action the player performs involves exploring the environments. I have counted all on-foot travel sections as exploration because as the game progresses and the player unlocks new abilities, so too will they unlock new ways to interact with these old environments. The second largest chunk of gameplay belongs to puzzle solving. This would not be a Zelda-like / Zelda clone if you're a hater, if the primary modes of gameplay expression were not exploration and puzzle solving. Puzzles take up a grand total of 2 hours, 32 minutes, and 32 seconds. I will go into much more detail on what I consider to be a puzzle and how those puzzles function throughout the gameplay loop in the puzzles section of the review. See this timestamp. Third up, that's like bird up, we have cutscenes. This isn't exactly gameplay, kind of the exact opposite if you want to think about it like that. I've included any instance where the player has control yanked away from them as a cutscene, so this includes not only big, bombastic, fully voiced segments of the game, but also the little moments when the camera pans to show you unlock something, or moments of silent, slow plotting NPC dialogue, moments without control that are not menus, because as a separate category, come in at 2 hours, 14 minutes, and 21 seconds. Fourth and foremost, that's a joke, we have my sizzle reel footage. We're throwing this out, just remember, it's sizzle reel. I did 53 minutes, and get this, 53 seconds of sizzle reel footage. It's getting tossed. Number 5, or spiritually, number 4, combat. Anytime I decide to defeat an enemy, required or not, is reflected in the combat category. There are some moments where the game will display an enemy's HP, and the combat theme will begin to play that I just ran right by. Since these moments resulted in no hits exchanged, I felt wrong including them in this category. The total runtime of fights that I participated in is 44 minutes and 42 seconds. I included the final encounters of Spellstone Cycle 3, that's the Walled City, and Spellstone Cycle 4, that's Dragon Rock, as boss fights in quotes. But I am open to recategorizing the Walled City's boss to a puzzle and the Dragon Rock boss to either atypical gameplay or fully invest in the creation of an on-rails category, which would encompass other moments of atypical gameplay featured in Dragon Rock, as well as the flight segments. You combine those, you get your new category, the rail shooting. That brings us cleanly to Category 6. Those are the atypical moments in gameplay. Starfox Adventures mixes things up on occasion, requiring the player to do things that stray from the standard gameplay loop. Things like hoverbike challenges, tests of strength, riding dinosaur companions, firing cannons, time challenges, and anything else that's just odd. By my arbitrary count of what is and what isn't atypical, we arrive at a total of 43 minutes and 54 seconds. Again, if you want to make your own breakdown, you could totally put some of the dino riding segments into a special rail shooting category. What I'm saying is you should just do it yourself. if you want to. It's your right. Category 7, the good old Starfox special. That's R-Wing piloting segments, the crux of many people's displeasure with this game. Fox only pilots his R-Wing for 40 minutes and 17 seconds, and that is with me counting the opening segment with Crystal where she's on the back of that dinosaur. His name's Kite. Kite might be a girl, I'll have to check on that. Also, counting, the 40 minutes counts me failing the Dragon Rock flight segments 3 times, 3 failures, and also flying to Dinosaur Planet on 1 additional occasion in a desperate effort to get some scarabs to respawn. If you remove those hiccups from the total, the actual estimated flight time for someone who is closer to perfect is 33 minutes and 23 seconds, so just north of half an hour. My final category is menus, also known as when I took little breaks while recording. I will likely stop my recording in the future for cleaner numbers if we count only mission critical menu segments such as the flight menus, the warp stone, and moments where you get a flashing transmission from Slippy. Or I think Peppy does those too, Slippy and Peppy. We can go to footage review, we can figure that out. You have a total of 6 minutes and 17 seconds. If you use my raw data, which includes all of my nonsense breaks, you will end up with 29 minutes and 45 seconds. You can subtract those to see how long my breaks were. To quote the Starfox Adventures Manual, and I quote, "The Gray Fox itself had also seen better days. Keeping a ship of that size in prime condition cost serious money, and well, paid jobs for fighter pilots and mercenaries were increasingly difficult to come by." End quote. So the boys are poor. They're desperate. This is the obvious cost of the peace they forged by defeating the armies of Andros in the previous games. Falco, my boy, has disappeared into the void of ceaseless space, desiring cash and excitement. The rest of the gang has fallen into expanded roles. Peppy, the map man. Slippy, in R&D. Rob is simply a better version of himself. And Fox, the wide-eyed son of a gun he is, still at the helm, still a crack pilot, and still hungry for adventure, floats through space awaiting the opportunity to get paid the big bucks and repair their space vessel home, the Great Fox. Meanwhile, still in the Lilat system, a girl named Crystal is blue and searching for answers. Blue as in color and sad if you aren't keeping up with me. Her planet was destroyed and her parents left for dead. She drifts in a lost corner of the galaxy and intercepts a distress signal through psychokinetic powers. Crystal, quote, "being of a kind spirit," end quote, responds. While pursuing the origin of the distress signal, she encounters a rogue galleon, chartered and commanded by the game's main antagonist, General Scales. Through a series of unfortunate events stemming from Crystal's kind and curious nature, Crystal finds herself assaulted in the palace of the Krazoa and trapped inside an ironic crystal stasis. Back on the Great Fox, in a moment of kismet excess, General Pepper here informs the Starfox team of a dangerous job and a big payday. Dinosaur Planet, the home of the dinosaurs, is tearing itself apart. I'm going to change that to the planet of the dinosaurs because that's funnier. Planet of the dinosaurs is tearing itself apart and will also explode. Fox is tasked with flying down to the planet to locate the Queen of the Earthwalkers to receive more information on how to prevent the planet from going explode and affecting the entire Lilat system. Once Fox's boots have touched down, Fox learns that he must collect the 4 spellstones, which the nefarious General Scales has stolen, and return them to the Force Point Temple. Also, Fox makes contact with the crystallized crystallide Crystal and becomes obligated to return Krazoa spirits to the Krazoa Palace to free her from her stasis. Ultimately, Starfox Adventure Story serves to get Fox into the action and serves as a background motivator to shuttle the player from interesting locations, which house the game's exploration, puzzle, and combat sections. Along the way, the player will encounter a litany of quirky characters belonging to the different major dinosaur tribes which rule over Dinosaur Planet. There's very little Starfox of old present in this story, with the only real Starfox moments occurring in the opening segments and at the game's end. I will cover these moments in much more detail in the segment titled The Starfox of It All. In the original game, Dinosaur Planet for the Nintendo 64, the story was clearly going to play out differently. There are themes about overcoming fear and tyranny, but they are ultimately surface level. The Rareware experience is not a blood meridian, but instead a Saturday morning cartoon. This is not a criticism. I love me some cartoons. I love me some simple themes. Easy to root for good guys, bad guys who are bad because being bad is good, and straight to the point stories, which allow the good times to roll. In this case, the good times are the action-adventure exploration gameplay segments which dominate the full run of the game. That's the end of the story segment. It's the shortest one. Congratulations to us for making it. This section will tackle Starfox Adventures' core exploration gameplay. Exploration encompasses the largest swath of Starfox Adventures' core gameplay and includes all moments where the player is exploring new or old areas in search of interactable level elements, puzzles, or combat. I have made the conscious decision to include all moments of backtracking into this category. I want to make it clear that when I say backtracking, I am not using the term as a pejorative. I will utilize a portion of this segment to explain why I do not view backtracking as a notable, cardinal sin. To start, I want to discuss the way the game structure and spellstone cycles create predictable gameplay patterns and how this structure serves the game and points out some clear pitfalls. To recap, a spellstone cycle consists of tracking to a new area, freeing a gatekeeper, returning to the hub, R-Wing flying to a planet chunk, obtaining the spellstone, returning back to Dinosaur Planet, delivering the spellstone, and then nabbing and returning a Krazoa spirit. Each portion of this loop, with the exception of the rail-shooting R-Wing combat portions, rely heavily on the exploration gameplay. When arriving in a new area, the player is greeted with unique landmarks and biomes which visually distinguish the game's zones. From ice to lava, from ancient architecture to whatever the hell Moon Valley Pass is, the game presents distinctive locales which play host to a litany of gameplay challenges and unique characters. Most commonly, the player is tasked with puzzles and sporadic combat segments, which gatekeep progression to the next area. Gameplay zones are distinguished by unique elements but also make use of previous challenges but scaled in difficulty and complexity. The Fox preamble of this game has unique white grub tub collecting. Snowhorn Waste has this mammoth challenge thing. Dark Ice Mines has these gears, mammoth riding, and conveyor belts. Moon Pass has these Jabba types and magic bean sprout seeds. Cloudrunner Fortress features a prominent stealth section, these laser traps, and this baby horn. Cape Claw has the only long-necked dino in the game, and he is greedy. Walled City has T-Rexes and puzzle dungeon sections. Dragon Rock has unique rail-shooting combat that is separate from the R-Wing sections, and the Force Point Temples and Krazoa Palace all have their own unique elements as well. Exploring these areas is a joy, and that is largely due to a rock-solid control scheme which allows for easy progression. Interactable level elements are easily identified through the context-sensitive button prompts which appear when approaching different game objects, and an overall cohesive visual language allows the player to easily identify reappearing interactable elements at a glance. Rocket pads on the ground, switches in the walls, dig locations for tricky, and much more appear repeatedly with no variations, making it easy for the player to identify how to tackle the game's overworld challenges. I really want to give props that the player is given the freedom to freely navigate the inventory menu while traversing the world. This allows for selecting game keys while approaching their gameplay keyholes. I always felt slick when skillfully navigating the menu while also controlling Fox. At this point, it is worth highlighting that Fox, for the most part, controls eerily similar to, you guessed it, put in the Zelda thing there, to Link in Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask. Once again, Rare surrendered to the notion that what is not broke, best not get fixed. These controls not only apply to exploration, but also the combat, which is heavily Z-targeting pilled. My final note on control is that in only rare, and there's no pun intended there, instances did I have any issue with the camera. Like I mentioned here, there are no second stick camera controls since the C stick is used to live navigate the inventory menu. However, the center and camera button located on the trigger is more than acceptable. Back on the topic of the spellstone cycles and its relationship to exploration. The loop does an excellent job of shuttling the player into many different zones that display a great array of visual intrigue and nuance. The lush, vibrant, and unique areas give each leg of this journey a rich texture that invites the player to continue exploring. Due to the nature of the back and forth return journeys to the game's major locales and the repeated visits to specific landmarks, the player will become well acquainted with the level geometry that composes Dinosaur Planet. It is easy to make a blanket statement that this is padding through backtracking, but I would vehemently disagree with this assertion. Since there is no fast travel, the player becomes well versed in the twisting corridors and vibrant landscapes which dominate the treks between major areas. These corridors, enemies, level traps, and visual gateposts become the backbone of the world that breathes life into its vistas. The world of Dinosaur Planet, by game's end, became my favorite character, and each journey to and from Thorntail Hollow rang loudly as a proud punctuation mark at the end of the game's chapters. Even though many areas are reused through the runtime of the game, each area, upon revisit, introduces slight twists or new puzzles, combat, or exploration to continue to facilitate the feeling of progress. And now a note on the Force Point Temple backtracking. On return visits to the Force Point Temples, new puzzle zones assist in making the journey not feel like a total rerun of a previous episode. I do believe that there are clear shortcomings in both return visits, however. The Volcano Force Point second visit does not offer enough in terms of new and interesting gameplay mechanics to have any of its specific puzzles stick out to me. If I took a week's break from working on this project, which I will not, and then watched a supercut of every Volcano Force Point puzzle segment, I would struggle to correctly identify which puzzles belong to which visit. Brief aside, I couldn't tell you now, and I've been working on this thing constantly. Problems also exist for the Ocean Force Point Temple. The puzzles present in Ocean Force Point 2 are simply rehashes of old puzzles, except they're a little bit harder this time. For example, take what I consider to be Ocean Force Point's flagship puzzle, the Spinning Flames. In the initial visit, the player must shoot blaster panels to activate squirting skull Krazoa domes to extinguish flames. Any skull can put out any flame. However, in the second visit, the squirting skull domes return, but now each one corresponds to a different colored flame, and those flames can only be extinguished by their specific Krazoa dome piece. This same process is true for all of Ocean Force Point 2's puzzles, and doesn't sit well with me. I appreciate, at minimum, they're more difficult, but the fact that the main puzzle segments in the second visit to the Ocean Force Point are the exact same layout as the first visit leaves me feeling like these second visits are the product of not enough time or resources. In an ideal world, Volcano Force Point 2 and Ocean Force Point 2 would be themed entirely differently, whether that means that we keep Ocean and Volcano Force Point but have new layouts and puzzles, or instead of having Ocean and Volcano rehashed, we have two different areas, like Sky and Dirt. Ask someone better than me to come up with something better than Dirt. However, with all things taken into account, I strongly feel like Starfox Adventures does the absolute most with what it has. The feeling of retreading old ground with new power-ups and getting to bask in these new areas still serves to create the feeling of an interwoven world where all locations can serve multiple functions. This multiple functionality of these spaces makes it feel more real to me. Mileage may vary. Many people decry this portion for being lame as fuck, but I really like it. One place can do a lot of things, and coming back to old areas is a joy that I just like. I'm a Metroidvania baby. There ain't much Vania and there ain't much Metroid, but we're going back, and I like going back, so leave me alone. Now for a note on Thorntail Hollow. Thorntail Hollow is the other major area which is visited multiple times. As a primary hub where all game action originates, it is only logical that a game which makes the most of its limited access to assets and zones would have multiple minor moments of transformative action, from rounding up brambles to light torches for a dinosaur population which is scared of the dark, this is silly, to defeating a massive infestation of hellbats, also kinda silly, and finally protecting a nest of dinosaur eggs at the behest of a young mother. This one isn't as silly, but it's still silly. The different gameplay moments scattered throughout Thorntail Hollow make the area feel alive and ever-changing. The player will also make regular visits to the Thorntail Hollow store to stock up on consumables, obtain key items, and purchase the maps for the many zones visited throughout the game. These moments of restocking and buying maps serve a key purpose in making the player feel like they are equipping themselves for a journey. I believe that when playing games, the most interesting way to engage with the content is to roleplay as the character you control. Of course, you can engage with your media and your virtual toys in whatever way suits your preferences, and whatever seeks to fill your joy, whatever suits your joy-seeking heart, motherfucker. Personally, I like to take a moment to consider what the protagonist would feel, and with Fox learning about the areas he'll soon visit through the NPC dialogue and the pause menu slippy messages, it only makes sense that this mercenary dynamo, pilot extraordinaire, Kung Fu master, would want to at least have a map with him. Thorntail Hollow is also the home of Starfox's R-Wing Star Cruiser, which is utilized throughout the entire run of the game to allow the player to access the Broken Chunk levels during each spellstone cycle. In all, Thorntail allows the players direct on-foot access to all major zones, those being the Snowhorn Waste, Cave Claw, and by extension the Ocean Force Point Temple, Mount Moon, and by extension the Volcano Force Point Temple, as well as interplanetary access to the 4 major level zones: Dark Ice Mines, Cloudrunner Fortress, Walled City, and Dragon Rock. I would be remiss if I didn't mention once again one of the most common critiques of Star Fox Adventures in this portion of the breakdown. If there's one portion that should be mentioned, this is the one. Quote, Star Fox Adventures is just a Zelda clone. Or, it's you ever played, it's like worse Ocarina of Time. I hate that game. It's just Zelda, and I love Zelda, but I hate that game. In IGN's E3 2000 coverage of the game, they stated, and I quote here, Zelda has obviously influenced Rare, as right off the bat, we notice that Dinosaur Planet plays damn near identically to Miyamoto's 64-bit classic, right down to the control scheme. Really, if Rare came right now and said, quote, Miyamoto gave us the Zelda code, and here's what we've been able to do with it, end quote, I wouldn't be at all surprised, end quote. Reality is not quite so simple. Rare didn't strip any source code or resources or anything like that, but they were heavily inspired by Ocarina of Time. To deny this would be absolute fucking folly. Have you played the game? Have you been watching this footage? Clearly they were very, very, very inspired. And here's a quote about that. Star Fox Adventures lead software engineer Phil Tossell had the following to say, and I quote, when we first began Dinosaur Planet, Zelda wasn't out yet, so the game had a slightly different feel. When Zelda came out, I think the designers were really inspired and amazed by it. And to a large extent, we emulated a number of features, as well as, personally, I knew the game had its flaws, but it also borrowed a little too heavily from Zelda, I think, end quote. Star Fox Adventures carries in it the spiritual DNA of the blockbuster Zeldas which came before. Fox, removed from the comfort of the cockpit, engages in an on-foot adventure which, like Zelda, includes exploring a moderately open world, solving puzzles, beating up on bad guys, speaking with colorful NPCs, duking it out with larger-than-life bosses, collecting items, upgrades, and consumables, saving a fox lady, or saving a foxy lady, auto-jumping in pseudo-platforming areas, and finally, being in Super Smash Bros. To deny these similarities is downright dishonest. This is very much a Zelda-like adventure, but that comparison in and of itself is not sufficient, in my mind, to completely disregard the game. Gaming has a rich history of clones which have succeeded in following in the footsteps of their progenitors. Look at Stardew Valley, The Simpsons Hit and Run, whatever the hell was happening in those Saints Row games, Perfect Dark, Diddy Kong Racing, Donkey Kong 64, and Cities Skylines. If you have others, think about them now. Thank you for thinking. Acknowledging similarities and dismissing games outright for those similarities are two wildly different things. Yes, this game is very Zelda-coded, but Zelda is awesome, so I feel like this needs to be given a fair shake. So let's talk about these puzzles. When I think Zelda, I think puzzles. There's a high degree of variation between puzzle types throughout the runtime of Starfox Adventures. These puzzles range from simple to complex, and from easy to just a little bit frustrating. Puzzles are broken down into the following puzzle types: barrels, plant a thing, blocks, blast or shoot the panel thing, tricky, and then special Krazoa Palace chamber puzzles, which are often unique in their own right and create more interesting gameplay opportunities sometimes. The interspersal of interesting one-off puzzles serves to dilute the overall presence of the more common puzzle types, but by the end of the game I was desiring additional unique puzzles because, quite frankly, I was done with the barrels. I was just done with the barrels. Are you familiar with the game Ultimate Chicken Horse? Stay with me. We're gonna go for a walk. Just stay with me on this one. We're doing a metaphor. I'm gonna go somewhere with this. In Ultimate Chicken Horse, players compete against one another in puzzle platforming races. The unique wrinkle Ultimate Chicken Horse presents is that between rounds, players can make the terrain more difficult by adding traps. I feel like the additional traps, which can get a bit out of control in Ultimate Chicken Horse, are a great corollary to the way Starfox Adventures scales its puzzles' difficulty and complexity. Take Ultimate Chicken Horse. Add a flame trap here, add a spike trap here, add a timer or an arrow launcher. Add more and more and more until there really isn't much more you can do. Ratchet up the difficulty piece by piece, round by round, obstacle by obstacle, and by the end of the game, the barrel puzzles have been completely Ultimate Chicken Horse to a ridiculous degree. I'm mixing my metaphors in that paragraph. For example, take the initial barrel puzzle presented in the Crystal Prologue and compare it to the final barrel puzzle in the final Spellstone area, Dragon Rock. In the Crystal Prologue, the player simply grabs the barrel, tosses it into a wall with a crack. Then they grab another barrel, and then avoid some traps and throw it into a wall. It's pretty straightforward. In the final barrel puzzle in Dragon Rock, the player has to have Tricky stand on a switch in the corner to enable a barrel moving apparatus. Once the apparatus has arrived at the barrel central, the player has to rhythmically shoot switches with the staff blaster to disable fire traps along the wall to prevent barrel-related disasters. Once the player has successfully navigated the barrel transport apparatus to a safe, fire-free zone, then the player must climb a ladder, collect the barrel, time barrel tosses through windy and fiery silos of increasing timing complexity. After that, the player must take the barrel across a bridge and then toss it into a wall with a crack in it. That's not the end of the puzzle. That's just the end of the barrel stuff. The puzzle continues. There's still another timing puzzle with Tricky's fire command, which I do like. I wish there was more of these. I think the Tricky stuff is underexplored. There's some ideas here. You can see why I'm doing the Ultimate Chicken Horse thing. You've take the barrel from one place to another, and then you fucking ramp it up to this thing, right? The barrel to one place, it loses its steam. But what if you add wacky gizmos and traps and little mechanics from different parts of the game? You just keep adding and adding and adding till it feels a little bit insane. These moments really show where the game is lacking in puzzle design. Instead of creating interesting zone-specific puzzles, which you might see in like a Legend of Zelda, the game gives you barrels and it gives you switches and it gives you blocks. These are the keystones which this game world is built, and the removal of them would compromise the overall integrity of the game. Like you've seen that Simpsons scene, that Simpsons episode, there's a scene in it. There's scenes in all Simpsons episodes. The house is under just like enormous pressure. It's about to collapse on itself, and there's a poster on the wall, and they say, oh, that's a load-bearing poster right there, and when it's removed, the house collapses. I feel like these gosh darn barrel puzzles are the absolute load-bearing poster of this world, because if you were to strip the barrel puzzles from this game, you wouldn't have that many puzzles left. Like the puzzles I've spent the absolute most time on in this game are the barrel puzzles. The one I just mentioned, the Ultimate Chicken Horse puzzle, and then the one in the Dark Ice Mines, which is my least favorite moment in the game, and it's front-loaded, and it's in, like, the best area, so it's crazy. It's crazy. It's crazy. I've been thinking about the gosh darn barrels. I get in the shower, and I think about the barrels. I'm at work, and people are talking at me, and I'm thinking about that fucking barrel puzzle in the Dark Ice Mines. How am I going to explain that in the goddamn review, you know? I like the game. But the puzzles can be frustrating, and this is an area where I wish it was more Zelda-like, and you can see the flaws very present. I think these puzzles are fine. They're fine. Next up on the puzzle chopping block, it's the Plant-A-Thing puzzles. The Plant-A-Thing puzzles really don't scale in complexity in the same way some of the other puzzle types do. I mentioned this directly after barrels to highlight the discrepancy. The Plant-A-Thing puzzle type does exactly what it says on the tin. You plant a thing, you interact with that thing in some capacity, either by shooting it with your laser blast or having Tricky uses fire on it. The key to this keyhole changes, but the outcome is the same. For one of those seeds, the bomb plants, you get those introduced right off rip with Fox in the preamble portion of the game, and the moon seeds are used exclusively during the Spellstone return portion of the first Spellstone cycle, where you collect a Krazoa spirit in Moon Valley Pass. I'm completely on the fence whether or not I would categorize this as like a puzzle type or maybe more of an exploration puzzle. I think the Plant-A-Thing puzzles do serve an interesting function in the gameplay. The seeds and their puzzles serve to reinforce conditioning in the players and the importance of preparation for events. You don't want to end up in an area with no bomb seeds, and you don't want to run past too many Jabba guys in Moon Valley Pass, because you might have to go back and need a moon seed. Preparation is the puzzle, so if you wanted to remove these entirely, I wouldn't be against that, though it's up to you. They're here for now. As I said earlier, I've gone back and forth on what to include in which areas so many times, I eventually just had to tell myself to stop. Me making myself stop is an act of spiritual defiance. So they're puzzles, because that's when I said no more after. That's the decision. That's what it was. I said no more. That's where it stops. You can remove these. If you do want to remove them, send me a carrier pigeon, and I will do the math and tell you how long the puzzles are. This level of conditioning, there was another paragraph related to that I should have kept reading. This level of conditioning for exploration is largely positive and makes the player's journey through the world feel like one of a larger scale. The UI very lightly nudges players to keep their counters in the bottom corner topped off. After all, it would be a real shame to have to plant a seed and not have any on standby. The game works to keep you topped off regardless, either by having relevant seed dispensers in reasonable proximity, or by casually, but intentionally, nudging the player to take advantage of the convenient bomb plant locations in central Thorntail Hollow. I really like that there's one bomb plant in the middle of Thorntail Hollow. You can restock on that and be like, I'm ready for the adventure. I think that's cool. Block puzzles. Block puzzles have some variation throughout. Many block puzzles boil down to moving a block on the ground level to a location, which enables the player to reach a higher level. This is how the concept is introduced in the Snowhorn Waste, and doesn't offer much variation until later in the game, when the game endeavors to present more varied and textured block-based puzzle challenges. I'm especially fond of these block sliding puzzles on the second visit to the walled city, which require the player to sequence the block pushes to ensure the blocks land on their intended locations. I think the game would have been wise to expand on concepts like these in the same way they expanded on the bomb barrel puzzles. The bomb puzzles ultimately are tests of the player's hand dexterity at the end of the game, rather than their mental capacity. So by having a specific puzzle type scale to focus on the player's mental ability, the developers would cover both input and logic related challenges. Switch flipping puzzles are barely puzzles. This game will present a red button, which the player is expected to aim true and steady at, repeatedly. The variations on this puzzle type creep into some of the other puzzle types discussed. For example, that gosh darn ultimate chicken horse puzzle, or as I wrote in the script if I would just read the script, such as the bomb barrel Dragon Rock ultimate chicken horse fiesta. There are multiple instances where the puzzle is to simply turn around and shoot the button behind you. The final mainstay puzzle type is any puzzle which requires the utilization of Tricky's command menu. I've decided to lump all tricky puzzles into the category because the gameplay variation they present is limited. The introductory tricky minion puzzles revolve around identifying exposed dirt patches and utilizing Tricky's find command. These puzzles scale very mildly with other tricky commands such as the stay command. Tricky digs up a switch. The player tells Tricky to stand on the switch, and then the player solves the final portion of the puzzle in whatever way the puzzle presents. In the Snowhorn Waste, Tricky learns to command the flame of his ancestors, and this is utilized sparingly throughout the rest of the game in the same method. The players identify an area where the flame command is used, the player selects the flame command, the puzzle is solved. The most complex utilization of this puzzle structure is presented just after the player gains access to the command. The player is timed to have Tricky use the command 4 times in the same room. Yes, that is the extent of the puzzle. I had a small problem with this puzzle on this playthrough because I failed to feed Tricky and had his belly absolutely empty when the timer was ticking down. Even with this small holdup, the puzzle was completed on the first attempt. Puzzles overall present a mixed bag. Some puzzles excel while others fall short either in conception or execution. Zelda-pilled gamers across the land decry this lack of puzzle diversity or complexity by framing it against their favorite Zelda, the pinnacle of the action-adventure mountain. But it is important to take into account the scales of these projects. Phil Tossell, again, had this to say, quote, "The problem was we were making Star Fox Adventures with a tiny team in comparison to Zelda. For most of the development, we only had 5 programmers, only adding much more later on. I don't think anyone would even attempt such a large game with such a small team nowadays," end quote. With the resources afforded to Rare over the game's development, they made the best of the situation. The puzzles served to add diversity to the gameplay structure while never becoming over-centralizing or taking away from the gameplay's best action exploration elements. Howdy kids, I hope you enjoyed that last segment covering Star Fox Adventures' puzzles. I wanted to take a moment to offer a brief wrap-up, because when watching the segment alongside you, I felt like I was being a little too cynical and a little too negative. After all, I want to seem like a big smart boy in my debut YouTube video. The puzzles in this game are definitely not bad. They lack a little bit in variety. They lack a little bit when it comes to execution, but the puzzles are, most importantly, pretty fun. In the way that Zelda puzzles make you feel smart, the puzzles in Star Fox Adventures also do the same. Even if it's something as simple as looking behind you and seeing there's a button to shoot in, you open a door, like that's all it takes. Like, oh, I had the wherewithal to scan the environment. The barrel puzzles do feel great when you execute them, even if they can be a bit silly at times. The block pushing puzzles do make you feel like you're becoming one with the environments that you're interacting with. Overall, everything here is good. They do their job well. Just because I was being review critical doesn't mean that they are bad. And I just wanted to make sure that point got across. Because when I watch it, I hear the words being spoken, and I also hear my intent, but I'm afraid my intent got lost in there. So to explicitly state it for you, I like the puzzles in Star Fox Adventures. I believe they do their job well. That's it. That's the big thing. Thank you for listening to this little ramble. Have a wonderful day. Enjoy the next segment, which is going to be combat. We're talking about combat next. This one's a little negative, and I don't think I'm gonna need to do an aside afterwards. Okay, bye-bye. Imamura really wanted Fox to have a gun in this game. I found multiple quotes from multiple interviews where he just doesn't let it go. Well, as we know, that didn't happen. Once the team finally tossed out Imamura's gun notions, they had to settle on a new weapon for Fox to wield. Quote, "Maybe a whip would work. How about both a gun and a sword?" Okay, again, he won't let it go. "We finally settled on Crystal Staff, which is a weapon." That's not the end of the sentence. "We finally settled on Crystal Staff, which is a weapon that doesn't require you to slash the enemy. After all, Fox is an animal character too, so I'm not sure if it'd be alright for him to be lopping off heads or anything." End quote. With Crystal's staff chosen as the primary weapon, the combat system was developed and finalized. To explain why Fox can't just gun murder lizard freaks, quote, General Pepper here, end quote, explains that it's always the same with Fox. Shoot first, ask questions later. This mission is about saving the planet, not blowing it up. It requires a different tactic. This section is not about tactics. Please reference the puzzle section of the video for that sort of mental intrigue information. This section is about staff smacking some gecko goobers, so let's begin. Starfox Adventures has a combat system which chooses form over function. The most straightforward approach to combat sees Fox engaging in combat with individuals or groups of Sharpclaws. In these combat encounters, the Sharpclaw will take turns engaging Fox in one-on-one combat. The player is now given full clearance by the developers to completely switch their brain off and hammer the A button. By doing so, they execute a flashy combo that sees Fox utilizing his rumored martial arts training and bounding about with style and grace while smashing Sharpclaw skulls one after another after another. There are alternative combos which are executed by pressing different directions on the control stick, but ultimately all combo trees are functionally created equal, only the visual pop and flare changes. The first few combat instances are engaging and exciting visual spectacles. However, after completing the main staff combo, enemy after enemy, the combat begins to feel more like an inconveniencing chore than a true test of skill. Dark Souls, this is not. There's practically no depth present in the system, and I found myself regularly running past enemies to save time and only engaging in required combat encounters which resulted in story or exploration progression. As a quick illustration of the lack of combat depth, I only now, on my second review of the script, remembered that Fox can block incoming enemy attacks. The game does not require this knowledge to ever be put into use. I genuinely don't think I have any footage where I press the block button during a combat sequence. There are a few moments where I use it during an exploration segment, but that's it. I can also say, with no doubt shadowed, I never used the block button in my childhood playthroughs or my collegiate playthrough. It is just that much of a non-factor. The player will continue to unlock new staff skills as the game progresses. These new powers are weavable into the game's regular combat encounters. Blaster shots, ice flamethrower, earthquake, super earthquake. All of these techniques add a bit of texture and intrigue to the combat, but do not do enough in terms of variability or fun factor to improve the fundamental problems with the system. I found that the most efficient way to tackle combat in the late to mid game is to equip the Ice Thrower staff upgrade and freeze every enemy. Once frozen, the varying types of Sharpclaw only take a single strike to defeat. An alternative approach that could be found during my collegiate playthrough, where I relied heavily on barrel stuffing enemies with the staff blaster due to the increased damage output. Your mileage may vary, so I recommend just playing around with options and finding out what suits your playstyle the best. The enemies the player encounters during the game have a small amount of variation. The primary enemy, the Sharpclaw, come in different colors to represent the different areas, blue in the ice zone, yellow in the hollow, etc. Some of the Sharpclaw come prepared for combat with just their weapons, but others will have shields. Ultimately, shield or no shield, it all results in the same combat outcomes, since non-shield wielding Sharpclaw also have the ability to block your attacks. Another common enemy is these gopher guys with the ability to target Fox from a distance. They're pretty annoying, but fighting them doesn't feel any different than a normal Sharpclaw. These gopher goons come in two varieties, ones that take multiple combos to vanquish, and these silly little ones which take just a single whack-a-mole smack to put in their grave. In Moon Valley, the player finds these Jabba the Hutt types, which require the player to utilize their newfound Groundquake staff power-up. These guys are simple, rinse and repeat cycle to complete. Groundquake, then 2 shots to the back, bang, bang. These guys are a bit of an enigma to me. I don't know what they're called. Without looking them up, I genuinely do not know what the best way to dispatch them is. I think a Groundquake into smack, 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 then Groundquake, smack, 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 rinse, repeat is optimal. It might not be. They don't show up enough to really get to flesh out your strategy. And again, I'm not looking it up. If you know, send me a letter with more details. Carrier pigeon is preferred. USPS is acceptable as an alternative. In the walled city, the player will have to fight actual, factual, scientifically accurate T-Rexes. These enemies are not stylized in any way. They do not communicate like the other dinosaur races, and they simply take a double Mega Groundquake to defeat them. They don't respawn after this. They're dead for good. You did this. Good job. Outside of standard combat encounters, the player will also face off against a series of boss fights. Each boss has a different gameplay style which makes them feel unique against their peers. 3 of the 4 Spellstone cycles conclude with a boss fight. The exception is Spellstone Cycle 2, which is Cloudrunner Fortress, which substitutes a boss fight for a land speeder chasedown section. As for actual boss fights, the first one is in Spellstone Cycle 1, and it focuses on strictly CQC style combat. The player will use their standard staff combo and blaster to deal damage and progress phases. The second boss, real boss, is the encounter in Spellstone Cycle 3. This is the walled city. It's more puzzle-like than previous. Here, the main challenge is identifying the steps to deal damage to the boss. Once the player has a grasp on what the game wants from them, it's all pretty straightforward. The third boss takes advantage of the atypical rail shooter combat present in the Dragon Rock segment, and it is in the 4th Spellstone cycle. That's all I had to say about that one. Yeah, I don't like that one. And the final boss takes place in outer space and requires the mastery of R-Wing space flight controls. These fights vary in quality, from really good to pretty bad. I especially like the spectacle of the first and second fights. I think the action and puzzle elements on top of the sheer scale of the enemies create interesting gameplay moments, even on repeat playthroughs. The third boss is genuinely quite bad. I think if the developers scaled down the health bar by somewhere between 25 to 30%, this fight wouldn't feel so long-winded and repetitive. The final boss fight is a mixed bag in every conceivable way. I will go into much more detail about this boss in the segment titled The Starfox of It All, because this fight has much larger implications than just gameplay alone would imply. Starfox has always been on the cutting edge of presentation. Just take a look at the original Starfox, which required the creation of an additional chip, the Super FX, to create the biggest and baddest, in a nice way, graphics. Starfox 2 was shelved because, compared to its peers in the gaming space, it could not compete. There was a precedent set for the standards of each Starfox release. Starfox Adventures is not different. While not including new hardware, the game still delivers on the presentation front. So I don't think I did a good job explaining there. Starfox 1 Super FX chip, it's breaking new ground. Starfox 2 refused to break new ground, and they shelved it. Like, the standard is high. That's what I'm trying to say. They shelved the game because it didn't meet their standards. Standards matter when it comes to presentation. Personally, I'm not somebody who prioritizes graphical and audio fidelity. I'm someone who much prefers to focus on the core gameplay loop. As long as the game's performance is consistent and the graphics and audio are not distracting or detracting from the gameplay, I can usually look the other way. Despite this, I still want to give an overview of Starfox Adventures' graphics and audio for the sake of overall context and thoroughness. The graphics are downright stunning at points, maximizing on the GameCube's hardware for sure. Fox's Fur doesn't look incredible by today's standards, but on release my child mind was thoroughly blown away. The environments are testaments to what a cohesive graphical game plan looks like. The technical melds with the artistic to create stunning vistas, lively characters, and strong visual effects. I spent a grand total of, and we'll flash on screen the puzzle time because I didn't put it in the script, crafting a sizzle reel of B-reel footage to show off these environments in a little more detail. But not only do these gameplay areas look great in a static frame, they also look great while in motion, and while engaging in gameplay challenges. I want to make specific mentions of these water columns that are present in the Ocean Force Point Temple. The way the light of the bomb plant seed reflects on the water onto Fox's character model. And this effect in dark areas and when using fireflies everything about the imposing volcano force point, and the stunning sky at the Cloud Runner Fortress, just an excellent skybox. Just to name a few moments that I think really stand out graphically. It isn't all graphics with Star Fox Adventures. The audio also delivers a highly variable soundtrack that features songs which are in your face and demand your attention, as well as background tracks which do not impose themselves when the player needs to focus on puzzles and exploration. Sound effects, by and large, deliver a punchiness which conveys their action well. The blaster, ice thrower, and sharp claw effects have lived rent-free in my brain since I was a child, and hearing them once again felt like returning home. Voice acting is a hot topic from the reviews and threads I've perused while making this project. I think this Reddit commenter hit the nail on the head when concerning the game's voice acting, comparing what is on offer to that of a Saturday morning cartoon. The voices are a little silly and the dialogue isn't setting the world on fire, but it does its job to create a fun environment and directly convey the next steps to a player. Fun fact, many of the voice actors portray multiple characters, with rare QA and sound design staff member John Silk or John Silky taking the crown with 9 unique credited voices. Starfox designer Takia Imamura had the following to say about voice acting, quote, "It's all very efficient, and it means they don't have to travel to London to find voice actors," end quote. So true. Fox McCloud's voice is provided by Steve Malpass, a designer from Rare who worked on games such as Perfect Dark and Banjo-Tooie. Steve has continued to voice Fox well after Star Fox Adventures, being the main voice of Fox in all Nintendo projects since, with his most recent role being Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. After a thorough review, most of these voice actors for this game are first and foremost game designers, artists, or audio engineers. The voice acting is a secondary role for these guys. This knowledge contextualizes these performances, and to me, adds an enormous amount of charm. Overall, this game's performance is excellent. I had no noticeable frame drops or input lag, and, quite honestly, didn't even consider the game's performance until I arrived at this portion of the review. Me not noticing or thinking about performance typically equals excellence because it was not distracting. This is also the best time to mention that Star Fox Adventures features a nearly loadless world. When traversing from one area to another on Dinosaur Planet, control is only ever wrestled away for cutscenes, but never a loading screen. You could technically walk from the entrance of the Ocean Force Point Temple to the entrance of the Volcano Force Point Temple without ever losing control of Fox. The most standout instance of the game really not wanting to have any loading screens is when the player enters into the Thorntail Hollow shop through these seemingly needless winding corridors. Well, hate to break it to me, they are needed. They're needed to camouflage the loads. Really confused me when I was a kid. Had no conception of what a loading screen was. Too stupid, too little. That's why it's windy. No loading screens. Loadless world, baby. On the loadless worlds, the lead software engineer Phil Tossell, we're talking to him again, had this to say, quote, "Star Fox Adventures was one of the first games to utilize a fully streaming world on a console that had a relatively small amount of memory. When we first conceived the idea of a no-loading world, it was on the N64, which of course had cartridges, making instant loading much more straightforward. However, by the time we moved to GameCube, we were faced with our first experience of a disc-based medium, which added complications," end quote. I, for one, believe these complications were worth it to create such a streamlined experience. I feel like, in today's gaming landscape, the no-load world is far more common, therefore, we kinda take it for granted. As someone who recently has played more games from the past, the loadless world does feel like a revelation, and they really executed on this and did a good job. When Shigeru Miyamoto put his hand firmly on the scale and retooled the then Dinosaur Planet into his shimmering idol, an on-foot Star Fox, quote, adventure for Nintendo's next-gen console, the GameCube, big changes had to occur. What was once a vast, expansive, technically innovative, and ambitious Nintendo 64 project had to have its square reshaped to fit Miyamoto's round hole. The developers could not just remove Dinosaur Planet's original protagonist, Saber, nay, Timber, and replace him with the bushy Fox McCloud without seeming completely soulless and unaware. Instead, the development team had to strip mine the essence of Starfox and smelt it inside of their game's foundation. Fox McCloud was the simplest fix, sharing proportions, spiritual composition, and loosely related phylum genus, made for a straightforward one-to-one transition. The similarities between the late Saber and the mercurial McCloud were enough to sway Miyamoto's masterful eyes in a seeming instant. But what else could be done to make this project feel more like Starfox and less like the Weekend at Bernie's comedic corpse puppet of the N64's Dinosaur Planet? Number 1. The R-Wing. Starfox's reputation at this point in time was defined by the stellar, and pun is intended on that one, rail-shooting action gameplay. In the original Super Nintendo Star Fox, levels only consisted of R-Wing combat action segments, whereas in Star Fox 64, the combat branched out by adding additional vehicles such as the tank-like Landmaster and the Blue Marine submarine. Star Fox 2 added additional gameplay wrinkles but ultimately hit the garbage can before its miracle resurgence in the late 2010s, so I'll discount that from the collective consciousness engagement with the Star Fox formula at the time of development and release of Star Fox Adventures. With this vehicle combat-oriented collective conscious engagement, it would have been a wild departure for Star Fox to only endeavor on his newfound, quote, Star Fox adventure, end quote, without having access to his gaming-famous Starfighter. Rare worked to incorporate the R-Wing throughout the game in space traversal segments. Some reviewers at the time said that these segments felt tacked on, and that is because they absolutely were. Lead software engineer Phil Tossell, I got a lot out of this interview, guys, had this to say about the R-Wing segments. Quote, "The R-Wing segments were added in fairly late, and because the game had not been designed with them in mind from the beginning, it stretched some of our tools beyond what they were designed for, limiting their scope and refinement. I would also have done more with the aforementioned R-Wing sections if we had more time." End quote. The R-Wing segments are present because the Fox McCloud is present. Ain't no dinosaur planet have need for a spaceship, you see. These segments, in their full tacked-on fashion,
leave much to be desired.
The developers determined at some point that simply having these segments serve as atypical traversal segments, we're watching the footage of this now, it was insufficient just traveling back and forth, so they had to be more deeply gamified. We're going to look at another game for a second here. Let's take Kingdom Hearts, for example, another game that uses space travel as a means to get the player from point A to point B. These KH segments ask that the player simply survive the travel segment, nothing more, nothing less. In Kingdom Hearts 2, these levels were given some Star Fox 64 glitz and glam, but still only asked the player to make it through the level. In Star Fox Adventures, the player is also tasked with gold ring traversal collection requirements.
The king
Amongst you, and the Star Fox sickos in the audience, will know these rings well, for they are another token of the past laid bare in Rare's gameplay mine. Fly through a certain number of gold rings, says General Pepper, in each mission, starting from 1 ring and increasing in difficulty up to all 10 rings in the level. This put a ring on it gameplay style is masked in the artifice of necessity, because if the player doesn't fly through the required amount of rings, then they fail to, quote, open the gatekeeper's force field, end quote. During the force field phase, the player will encounter other relics of the distant future's version of Star Fox's past. Silver rings, laser upgrades, and bombs lifted deftly and pickpocket-like from the corpse of Star Fox 64 make up the final homages to Star Fox 64's roots. In the moment, these references drip with love for the source, but in retrospect their impact is dim and difficult to appreciate without some cynicism. But fear not, these vestiges of Star Fox Adventures' past are not all the, quote, Star Fox this adventure has to show. Number 2. The gang is all here. From the first moment the player boots up Star Fox Adventures, it is clear that Star Fox is a team effort. As all good gamers know, it is imperative to check a game's options menus prior to beginning the game. And when thumbing the stick through these options, players are met with a different character for each sub-menu. Peppy, the map man, lazes in his map man's chair, awakening when the player needs access to his screen, Here the player can change the aspect ratio or enable rumble. Slippy Toad's abode's options mode is sound. Audio, baby. Slippy, the cool guy he is, leisurely, casually, and confidently leans next to a jukebox, which can really get this game's audio hopping. Rob, the robot, stands menacingly in front of screens that are reminiscent of the dialogue pop-up menus in the prequels, making me believe that these are some sort of health readouts that Rob, the robot, monitors. Next to that, the game's demo sizzle reel plays on loop. Rob contains multitudes, and Rob contains the languages menu, which is only subtitles. It's very lame, Rob. That's very lame. Would like some more options there, like, the language. The boys also appear in the cutscene immediately following the end of Crystal's prologue and before the start of the Fox preamble. Introduced by a sailing shot of the Great Fox, Slippy completes repairs on Rob. Rob yearns for the mines. Peppy acts old. And General Pepper here provides the mission brief. Big rock guitars blare and hijinks ensue. These are your boys, and they are here with you on this adventure. In another menu. Each of the Great Fox's great pilots provides a different pause option that's suited to their in-game role. General Pepper here provides status updates related to game completion, including items, upgrades, playtime, and completion percentage. Peppy, in his newly retired role as the Map Man, well, he mans the maps, showing players where they are, where they have been, and where they are going. Slippy provides tooltips, or toad tips in his case. These serve as hints on what the player needs to do when lost or confused. And that covers it. I kind of feel like I'm forgetting one of the boys, but oh well. Number 3, the twist. I think I've already spoiled the hell out of a lot of the things in this game, either showing footage or talking about it, though I have tried to be a little bit vague at points. I've intentionally avoided some big things, and these are those big things. I have saved the big spoiler for now, and if you are watching this video and don't know the big spoiler, congratulations, because it's one of the things that everybody don't shut the fuck up about. This is a warning that if somehow you've made it this far in the video, and you also don't know the big spoiler, and anything that I've said to you has swayed you in any way to give this game a go, stop watching or skip ahead. Okie dokie, let's go. This is your final warning. Beginning now. Instead of the twist, this section maybe should just be called the Andross of it all. Andross is the big bad villain of the Starfox universe. He is the Bowser to Fox's Mario, the Ganon to Fox's Link, and the poor reception of new Star Fox games to Fox's ability to have nice things. Andross is the guy, the big bad guy, and he literally shows up at the last second. Kind of. So let's look at this at face value. The player meanders and squabbles their way through this game, solving puzzles, exploring these vibrant landscapes, freezing and breaking bad guys over and over and over again. All in the name of defeating the evil empire of General Scales. Scales, in his wickedness and single-mindedness, has done everything to capture the heart of Dinosaur Planet. He's posted troops at all major locales, stolen precious artifacts, imprisoned royalty, all in the name of conquest and domination. Fox, in turn, has smacked down those troops, freed the prisoners, and reacquired all major artifacts. Fox, in the
Trail of Fears.
the Trial of Fears, oopsie daisy, that's a fucking goddamn it. In the Trial of Fears,
Fox
he's faced with the specter of General Scales. Scales lingers in all corners of this adventure, and at the very end of the game, when going to acquire the final Krazoa spirit, the player is finally placed squarely in one-on-one combat with the big bad. Let us watch this fight in full now. That was it. The fight is abruptly and unexpectedly stripped away in an instant. Like the voice of an angry god, you hear, quote, "Scales, you are no longer of any use to me," end quote. Scales, after demands to surrender are issued, collapses, and Fox obtains the final spirit. After a prompt spirit delivery, Fox has accomplished his goal, obtaining all the Krazoa spirits and freeing Crystal. But, oh wait, the twist even more, and everything falls to pieces. Reborn! In the Krazoa darkness, the Krazoa god demands fealty, wreaks havoc, and flees to the sky. Fox, in chase, takes to his Arwing and follows. Then, it happens. Arriving in a crescendo of awkwardness and diabolical cynicism, the flayed, red, scarred visage of Andross twists from his Krazoa alias, and a space combat boss fight ensues. So, to summarize, Fox was tasked to obtain the Krazoa spirits by Andross, who masqueraded as a benevolent Krazoa god, to ultimately award Andross with the power to destroy the Lilat system once and for all. Neat. The twist is lightly alluded to within the game's first minutes. In this cutscene, Crystal says, in the bottom section here, the subtitles, "It's you." This rattled my brain during this playthrough. I have never noticed this detail before, but Crystal very clearly saw Andross, knew it was Andross, and got Crystal stuffed as a result. The player would likely assume the "you" she is referencing is General Scales, since Crystal and the player alike were introduced to Scales at the very top of this game's runtime. But if you read the manual, you may have an inkling that there's more than meets the eye. God, I love this manual. It is my comfort item. The twist itself is talked about quite extensively online in the Starfox Adventures circles as being, if this game even has circles, and it's in the threads discussing this game and YouTube videos that I watched when I was a little fucking kid. It's just, they think this is just a fucking monumental rug pull that strips the player of the opportunity to finally face off against the perceived antagonist of the game, General Scales. Not only is there no General Scales fight, but players are also expected to complete the game's paramount climax in a shoehorned flight segment. Again, we've talked about this, the flight segments were added way after the fact. When I say shoehorn, it's not about this flight segment, it's about all flight segments. As an individual who surrenders to the Glass Reflections review notion that the ending is paramount, this particular ending serves to leave the most sour taste in many players' mouths. If you don't know, he's an anime reviewer. I watched him in middle school, and I've never got the phrase, "endings are paramount," out of my brain. If you think that's bullshit, that's your prerogative. But let's dive just a little bit deeper. What does this fight entail for the player, other than its massive rug pull factor? The final Andross fight is genuinely the best flight portion of the game, hands down. I like this fight top to bottom. It introduces a level of challenge that other portions of the game severely lack. There is an execution component in properly aiming timed shots, dodging incoming attacks, and mashing the absolute hell out of the barrel roll button. There's also a small puzzle element when it comes to figuring out the best way to sustain your health, how to dodge all these attacks, and how to mash the hell out of those brakes. It took me a few tries to learn these tricks and to put them into executable practice, and I felt a sense of accomplishment at the flight's conclusion. Again, I feel like I'm forgetting something, or maybe I'm forgetting someone?
Hey McLeod, different time, different planet, and you still need Falco's help. It's good to see you, buddy.
Number 4, oh yeah, there's that guy too. As an avid childhood reader of... I'm trying to drum roll. As an avid childhood reader of the Starfox Adventures player manual, I always wondered about this Falco guy. Why is there all this mystery? He's right there in Melee, for absolute fuck's sake. I've just played it at my cousin's house. He's right there. I know what he's there. I see him. Why isn't he here? Why isn't he with the crew? According to the manual, he left years ago, pursuing a more profitable and exciting life, but he will always be Fox's friend. And through the power of friendship, he arrives in the most climactic moment. My child mind was downright fucking blown, everybody. There he is. I shouted. I wasn't a yeller as a kid. I probably said it with like a little bit of, oh, there he is. That's him. That's Falco. From Melee, from my cousin's house. From the manual. It's just awesome. It's cool. My initial childlike wonder and excitement will always overwhelm even the most pernicious and critical cynicism I have. I love this moment. I love the second act of this fight. Even writing this, Falco's reveal still leaves me beaming ear to ear. I know that people don't agree with me on this, but this is a moment where the rose-colored glasses are firmly welded onto my other glasses, which are then stapled into my skin, which is... I didn't write that, I just riffed that. It's gross. There is a joy surrendered in the depths of my being that is stirred into action by this silly little moment. This is the apex of the Starfox of it all. Even when the R-Wing sections are filler, shoehorned in at the last moment, and the Andros twist sucks all the oxygen out of the room, Falco's arrival breathed in a new, fresh air. One big final breath of life to see this game through to the end. In conclusion, the Starfox stuff has its moments. I love the opening cutscene. I love the integration of the crew into the options and pause menus. I don't like the R-Wing sections since they're just so forced. They lack intrigue, level diversity, gameplay fare. It's just not there. The Andros twist is lame, feeling cheap, unearned, and like something big was taken from the player just so the developers could appease a Nintendo needing way more Starfox in this Starfox game. But Falco, that lovable, cheeky dork, really sells it for me. Your opinion may differ on the Falco factor. I loved it then, so in rose-color tinting of this future room, I can only love it now. I would be remiss to not mention that I believe more development time would have served this team well, so that way they could flesh out the Starfox of it all. What's there is haphazardly applied to Dinosaur Planet's foundation, like cheap wallpaper. It's frayed on the boundaries, the seal and the applied glue, there's no delicacy, it's misaligned on the edges. A defter hand, a larger budget, or a larger development window could have served to make the Starfox artifice into the Starfox core. The Dinosaur Planet portions stand at odds with the Starfox portions and create an awkward inner exchange of ideas. Going to Phil again, lead software engineer, agrees, saying, quote, "It also felt a little too much like the Starfox elements are tacked on, which of course they were." End quote. Sure, Fox and Saber have similar proportions, but Saber, Fox is not. At face value, the Starfox of it all is almost all detriment. The game stands proud in its grand moments, the exploration of this interwoven meticulous world, the quirky characters, and beaming ambition still outclass all of this Starfox stuff. But the Starfox of it all has outlived the good stuff and became the legacy of this game. People only want to discuss the Starfox stuff, which is typically the worst stuff. Because if you want to check the title of this game, of this video, look in the description, look in the comments, I'll leave one, it'll just say Starfox. This is a Starfox game. I make this video to implore everybody to look at the full picture. The Starfox elements are mostly background, and in the few in-your-face flying segments, well, those are few and far between. There's a lot to love here, but you have to look past the fiddly and wonky implementation of its set dressings. A final word for this segment, the Starfox of it all, is all anyone talks about, but it's barely present. Sure, these elements are lacking, and they're few and far between. The core elements on display are good and fun and interesting, and they're worth playing. I encourage you, the viewer, especially those who have never played this game, to let the Starfox criticism drift clearly through one of your ears and write out the other one. This game is worth a try. It is worth a little attention. To reiterate from what I said at the beginning of this video, this is a game who's greater than the sum of its parts. I feel like in this interminable rundown of what's become basically all things Starfox, it offers me a great opportunity to finally bring up what that second game my father purchased for the GameCube was. Do you remember me mentioning that at the beginning? I did. I double-checked, I triple-checked, I did mention it. It's like there's a twist. There's no twist. Come on, man, come on. The first game he purchased, of course, is Starfox Adventures, the plucky hero of this exhaustive revelry. Second, and I absolutely fucking shit you not, was Star Wars Rogue Squadron 2, subtitle Rogue Leader. This released in November of 2001 in North America and May of 2002 in Europe. I didn't see a Japanese release. They missed out. They probably would have liked this. It's pretty good. It sold a grand total of 1.1 million copies in the regions it released, North America and Europe. And it earned itself a Player's Choice release, which is the copy I own. I did mention at the beginning, this was a game I played for this video, so I've mentioned this twice now. I'm making it abundantly clear here, though, that there's a connection, and this is it. I know my father just a little bit, and I know for certain that he was not one of the people bemoaning Fox McCloud's transition from cockpit to boot stepping. After some consideration, which mostly consisted of me walking back and forth in my apartment going, I've determined that the first game my father purchased for the Nintendo GameCube was not Star Fox Adventures, but rather Star Wars Rogue Squadron 2, subtitle Rogue Leader. I've had the order wrong in my brain this whole time. My dad almost certainly bought Rogue Leader first because he is a man who likes his Star Wars. He then also purchased Star Fox Adventures because both games had the word Star in their titles. But in doing so, his little accident purchased the exact game to offset what I believe to be many people's largest gripe with Star Fox Adventures. Rogue Leader is an action combat space shooting game which has varied levels, a highly replayable score-oriented challenge mode, and is hard but not too hard in its challenge difficulty curve. Rogue Leader is the best version of Star Fox 64 on the Nintendo GameCube. This is only slightly a stretch, but I can assure you that anybody who found Star Fox 64's gameplay electric and addictive will have a full-fledged fricking field fay with this one. I personally found this game way too hard as a child, and my original GameCube memory card from the time of antiquity will back this claim up. But in making this video, I felt compelled to give this game a quick spin, and in my hour of playtime, I completed 4 or 5 missions and had that field fay I just mentioned. If you are a Star Fox fan and have not played this one, you owe it not only to yourself, but also to my father's weird happy accident, and that is a double entendre, to give this one a go. If there's one thing that I hope to have made abundantly clear, and among many things, it's that it's only fair to criticize this game for what it is and not for what it is not. And it's not like this particular brand of detractor would forever have to live in a world without a rail shooting Star Fox. There were multiple Star Fox releases after Star Fox Adventures, which feature the original shoot-'em-up goodness of past franchise entries. Allow me, for a moment, to go through all the other games which came out in the Star Fox franchise following Star Fox Adventures. Star Fox Command. In August of 2006, Star Fox Command was releasing for the Nintendo DS in Japan and North America, with European and Australian versions following just a few months after. The game features a more prominent return to the cockpit for Fox McCloud, but also introduces rudimentary, top-down, real-time strategy elements which dominate the gameplay loop. The game sold over 400,000 copies and debuted at the top of the Japanese gaming charts. Reception for the game was mixed, trending towards positive, with a Metacritic score of 76 from reviewers, and generally worse reception from fans, landing at a 6.4 user score. Nintendo Power praised the game with the highest recorded critic score, whereas Eurogamer slammed the game with a 60. History repeats itself. I didn't write that. I read the reviews for Adventures way after this. Eurogamer also slammed Adventures. They said that it's, quote, profoundly disappointing and, quote, lacks Starfox 64's balleticism, subtle difficulty curve, and queer beauty, end quote. I have played the first few hours myself and arrived at a similar conclusion. Once again, we do not have a true return to rail shooting action, instead favoring free-form combat zones, which the player can navigate in all directions. Very similar to some of the boss segments in Star Fox 64. While this game may have tickled some people's pickles, many Star Fox freaks were waiting with bated anticipation for the next R-Wing outing and potentially a true return to the sanctified roots of this franchise. And players would receive exactly that wish in the next installment. Star Fox 64 3D was released on the Nintendo 3DS in July of 2011 in Japan, September 2011 in North America, Europe, and Australia, Korea in 2012, and China in 2013. This game is the fourth installment in the franchise to break 1 million units sold, and the first to do so since Star Fox Adventures. If you will allow me, which why wouldn't you at this point? Like, I've been talking nonsense for a while now. Flash the number on the screen. What's one more aside? Here it is. Star Fox 64 3D is the second Star Fox game released in China. The first, Star Fox 64, was released on the iQ Player, a Chinese-only console created as a joint venture between Nintendo and the Taiwanese/American hardware designer Wei Yan. If I pronounce that wrong, hit me with a carrier pigeon. The iQ Player is interesting because the controller is the console. Games are loaded onto a memory card which plugs into the console, and then the controller/console hybrid is plugged into the television. This is similar to a plug-and-play system that you may have seen in your youth if you're my age or a little bit younger. Think like SpongeBob, or think of this JonTron video. I keep mentioning him. I can't stop mentioning that guy. Where was I on the script? Only 14 games were released for the console. If you can wrangle up an iQ Player, you can play all of your favorite Nintendo 64 games, such as Dr. Mario 64, The Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time, Super Mario 64, Wave Race 64, Mario Kart 64, F-Zero X, Yoshi's Story. Let me do that one again. F-Zero 10, Yoshi's Story, Paper Mario, Sin and Punishment, Excitebike 64, Super Smash Bros., Custom Robo, Animal Crossing, and last but not least, it's Star Fox 64, everybody. Oh my god, it's Star Fox. Star Fox 64, which was included as a limited time trial on all bundled memory cards and had all of its dialogue dubbed into Chinese, a rarity even amongst the small localized field. The current secondary market price at the time of writing for an iQ Player is between $800 USD, with the lowest and the highest at $3,000 USD, and these are $2025. If you want to do the math for future dollars, you can do that. Currently, the price is a little too rich for my blood, but in time, may all guys, gals, and non-binary pals have access to their own iQ Players. Again, you only a few $1,000s. Back on topic. Star Fox 64 is a remake/remaster. I don't know which one to use. You can decide. Again, carrier pigeon of the beloved N64 classic, which has spawned the criticism that Star Fox Adventures has not managed to fully escape. Star Fox 64 3D was my introduction to the proper Star Fox rail shooting formula. The game is beyond excellent because the source material is excellent. It's got the fanciest graphics, the tightest gameplay, a banging structure, and massive replayability. Finally, the worthy successor to Star Fox 64. Star Fox 64. If you don't think that counts, well, that's between you and your higher power, now isn't it? If after consulting with your higher power you have determined Star Fox 64 3D does not count, then next up on the docket is our most modern of Star Fox releases, Star Fox Zero, which was released on the Nintendo Wii U, Wii Woo, in April 2016 in Japan, North America, Europe, and Australia. Developed by Platinum Games, the developers of many highly acclaimed games including Bayonetta, Nier Automata, and Wii U cult classic The Wonderful 101. To rip the band-aid off here, the majority of discussion about Star Fox Zero revolves around its unique control scheme. In Game Explain's review, he called the game a quote, twin-stick, twin-screen shooter, which I think is the absolute best elevator pitch for the game. Initially, when I wrote this segment, I had never played this game. The Wii U is largely a black hole of gaming for me because I entered into a games are lame phase whenever I was in insert period of school. I don't know how specific I want to be. Games were lame. Clearly, as the runtime for this video suggests, that is no longer the case. I had written a segment largely based on my impressions from watching and reading reviews and engaging with content from the game's release. This, however, did not sit right with me, so I pony-upped and purchased Star Fox Zero plus Star Fox Guard in a bundle from a very nice person on eBay. Thank you, eBay, you make my weirdest dreams come true. Zero offers rail shooting and all range modes, which utilize the Wii U's unique second screen gamepad to allow the player to move their aiming reticle independent of their vehicle's trajectory. Reviews for Star Fox Zero were mixed, with an aggregate critic score on Metacritic of 69 and an aggregate user score of 7.3, with some critics and users alike praising the innovative and unique control scheme, which others bemoaned the clunkiness and awkwardness of the controls. This stark contrast and perspective regarding the control scheme and divisive nature of the game have resulted in a game that is often not discussed when parading timeless Nintendo classics around. I recommend everyone give this game a shot to determine if the unique twist on controls is the innovative evolution of gaming, or another unfortunate fumble in the name of progress. I do want to note tangentially, another tangent, that these discussions of innovative versus awkward controls appeared with my favorite 3DS game, Kid Icarus Uprising, where initially I was completely convinced that Sakurai and his team had smoked some awful good wacky tobacco and missed the mark on their gameplay. But after a little practice and concerted effort, the controls sang harmoniously and completely made me rethink all criticism. There is a genuine discussion about optimal controls versus comfortable, which is worth having. But I will save that for another time. Regardless, with over 400,000 units sold, Star Fox Zero left an impression on those that played, but the particulars of the impression vary drastically by individual. I can see myself getting really good at this and being a firm believer that this is the optimal way to play. However, I will not, because I don't want to. And that marks the end of Star Fox entries. Really, throughout the entirety of Nintendo Switch's lifetime, not a single Star Fox game was released. Fox and friends continued to make appearances on the console in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, where Fox, Falco, and the Star Wolf returned to duke it out amongst the likes of Cloud Strife, Terry Bogard, that guy from Persona, and Minecraft. Star Fox characters were also featured in the Ubisoft game Starlink Battle for Atlas, which was released on PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and of course the Nintendo Switch on October 16, 2018, and on PC in April of 2019. The Star Fox gang only appears in the Switch version of the game, and to play as Peppy, Falco, and Slippy, the player must purchase an additional DLC. Navigating on the Nintendo Switch to the eShop and searching for Star Fox, we'll find this specific DLC, the main game, some other detritus, and of course everybody's favorite indie darling, the Fur Squadron. The most keen-eared amongst you, and the most Star Fox-pilled psycho crazies amongst you, have recognized a single glaring omission from this list. Star Fox Assault, the second Star Fox game released on the Nintendo GameCube, developed by the one and only Namco, and released throughout 2005 in Japan, North America, Europe, and Australia. The reason for the initial omission is simple and not pernicious or shady. I don't own this game. I have vague memories of the on-foot blaster sections from when I watched my older cousin play this game at my grandma's house, but I cannot recall ever being the one controlling the action. I've considered watching a Let's Play and commenting on the action here to sum this up, but I'm going to be honest with you, I'm on my second microphone, second capture card, and I don't want to. I don't want to watch a whole Let's Play. I want to watch MasterChef, and I want to watch The Pit on HBO. I don't want to watch a Let's Play. I'd rather play it, and I don't own it, so I'm not doing that. I hope you can still respect me, and more so, I hope that you can still love me for my refusal to do this. Here's some more information about Starfox Assault, because we covered the information for literally every other game. Sales and reviews for Starfox Assault are well below that of Adventures. That's really, I could stop there and I'd be so content. According to Metacritic, the average review score from critics is a 67, whereas players view the game much more favorably with a score of 80. That's an increase of 13 points. That's some quick math. Sales for the game topped out under 1 million units, with the best estimates gauging the game to have sold just shy of 900,000 copies. Assault sits highly on my coveted games list, but making this video has already exhausted my frivolous spending. Like I mentioned, I'm on my second microphone. Actually, that's a fucking lie. This is microphone 3. I bought a USB mic, a Fifine. It was very cheap and it sounded terrible. And then I bought a Samson Q2U from Amazon with a USB-C port, which did not work. I posted on Reddit and I posted through the Samson trouble ticket Zendesk to get help, and no one could figure it out. So I went to Best Buy and purchased a second Samson Q2U microphone, which does work out the box immediately. So hardware, fucking goddamn it, gotta return something to Amazon. Never done that. Gotta learn how to do that. It's a learning process, this whole thing, you see. It's on the coveted games list, but I've spent a lot of money. Maybe when I get my refund from Amazon for the microphone that doesn't work that they sold me, then I can purchase it. Maybe in the future I can give this game a fair shot and find something worth loving. Until then, I will not watch a Let's Play, and I will not purchase another fucking microphone. Please allow me to be. I just want to edit this thing. Okie dokie. Starfox Adventures is a cosmic accident whose silly little existence has profoundly and unapologetically sank its hooks into my heart. Fox and gang's vassal spirits have rattled my cell doors and demanded immediate entrance on multiple occasions. When I was a child, my father purchased a GameCube and 2 games on a lark, considering it to be just the right amount of child appropriate to sate my then overly protective mother. My father, a small-time, battle-hardened gamer, had spent his youth between combat sports, arcade triumphs, and home console delights. Being primarily a casual gamer through the 80s and 90s, tackling games more akin to Pac-Man and Tecmo Bowl, and less akin to Zelda and Policenauts, the decision to embark with his children in tow into the world of Nintendo's second furriest hero was a change of pace for sure. But despite the world of Saria, nay, Dinosaur Planet, being foreign and strange, the decision was made regardless. I recall, in crystal clarity, sitting in front of the dull hum of a small CRT television precariously positioned on the edge of the fireplace. The GameCube cords stretched to the max to accommodate the misappropriated living room space. There, in that living room, with my father and brother, I was treated to an adventure of our own creation. Starfox Adventures was my first true foray in the 3D action-adventure game space. My brother and I's only other connection to gaming was through our Game Boy Advance consoles and the small 2D worlds therein contained. The richly realized texture of the 3D Starfox Adventures captivated and amazed my child mind in the same way that Pokemon Ruby did for 2D games. Once those hooks are in, they're pretty damn tough to get out. In middle school, the gentle whisper of the past coolly demanded attention. The first true whiff of nostalgia graced my presence, and the exploits of Fox and Friends warranted a second bout of attention. However, I did not commence a second playthrough. Instead, I went to my newfound foremost interest, the YouTube Let's Play. At the time, if I recall correctly. And that is a big if. There weren't too many well-recorded Let's Plays. Most of the market was consumed by slipshod camcorder footage and did not meet the capture card standards of today. Angry Poncho, with his pristine capture card footage, won out amongst the crowd. Over the next few weeks, I relived the experience of watching my dad and brother play through this game. It became a religious rite to immediately dash to begin my daily episodes when school concluded. Getting to relive the game in full through the eyes of another was a joy and sated my Starfox appetite, but only temporarily. In college, me and my 3 smelly roommates made regular visits to the local game store. It became our standard to wander around, make small talk with the staff, and grab whatever silly odds and ends captured our attention. It was only reasonable that one of those trips would result in my purchase of a second copy of Starfox Adventures. This playthrough occurred in bursts with the boys, and in these boy bursts, I did my absolute damnedest to convince the small crowd of stinky, inveterate game fans that this game was, in fact, really good. I think I managed to turn some hearts, some minds, and maybe hopefully, and I mean this in a completely serious, non-joking way, some souls. No matter where I have been or where I will go, I have always kept 2 boxes with me. In the first, a collection of novels which illuminate my understanding of the world and its people. These books carry in them stories of rich splendor and incisive themes, works of art, each and every one of them, special treasures of my own curation. Each relocation, I take inventory of this simple container and make appropriate adjustments. Out with the works which no longer touch my soul, and in with those that breathe life and understanding. I treat this action with more respect than just about anything I've ever done. I encourage everybody to do something similar. You may just learn something about yourself. The limitation presented in the confined space forces us to make choices, often hard ones, about what we believe about ourselves and what sparks our deepest joys. In my second box, I do the exact same, but instead of works of written fiction, I possess my most treasured games. Both copies of Starfox Adventures have dwelled in this game box for as long as my right to vote has existed. I believe objects have spirits, not so much in a literal way, but more in a metaphysical, metaphorical sort of way. I can't simply keep one copy of this game, because sure, removing one would make space for another. But removing one would also do enormous spiritual damage, the likes of which no mortal shall reckon unless forced upon by cosmic authority. A man like me must retain possession of both copies for sentimental and mythical reasons. If you get it, you really get it. And girl, if you don't, well, you just won't. Today, I hope I have convinced you guys, gals, and non-binary pals that this here game is worthy of the prime real estate it has inside my precious games box. Starfox Adventures is really good. This game, I'll say it again, it's good. Once more, as clearly as possible, Starfox Adventures is good. The hate that percolates from edges of the internet, that decry the half-hearted flight segments and the backtracking, and the simple fact that this is not Starfox 64-2 is ill-placed, lacks critical sentiment, and intentionally omits the moments of excellence and quality that pervade every segment of this game. I want to use this as an opportunity to provide insight through a critical lens, identifying the game's pros and cons, and laying them bare in an easily digestible format. I'm not so naive or nostalgia blinded to believe that Starfox Adventures is a perfect game. It is not free from blemishes and faults. There are clear as day faults present, but it is so important to realize that a present fault isn't a full indictment. Faulty things carry enormous beauty often. I wanted to present that beauty that I see that may have been so far omitted in the general critical discussion of this piece of interactive, visual, and tactile art. Thank you for your time. Welcome to the epilogue. Thank you so much for sitting through that video. I hope you enjoyed it like a lot. Genuinely, I hope you had a grand old time giving that a spin. I wanted to take a moment to give some of my final thoughts on the creation of this beast, which I call it a beast, and I know in the grand scheme of things it really isn't. I've had videos recommended to me that exceed 6 hours in length, and they're tightly edited little nightmares. So I don't understand exactly how someone can have the patience to make that, because I'm at just about 2.5 hours, 2 hours and 23 minutes right now, and it's been an enormous effort. I'm currently playing the credits for Starfox Adventures behind this as supplemental footage. Whenever you see another video essay conclude, typically it's by someone who's been doing this for a while. They work their way up to this, and they'll be rolling a list of names of people who supported them in the making of their videos. I very intentionally did this one by myself. I know people who know how audio stuff works, but I'm an incredibly stubborn individual, and I was like, I'm gonna figure this out. And in some ways I did, in some ways I definitely didn't. So instead of having a list of names scroll by of people who paid for this, because this is the first one. I don't want to make any money from this because that's crazy. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoy watching the credits of the people who made this game this video is about. If I end up rambling too long, I might also play the credits for Star Fox 1 and then Star Fox 64, because if you'd believe it, this credit sequence is only about 3.5 minutes long, and I've been rambling for just about that long, and I haven't gotten anywhere near what I want to say. I don't like the audio on this. If there's one thing I could fix, it would most certainly be the audio. I've recorded the audio for this video multiple times, which, as I said, the video is 2.5 hours long. So I've spent at minimum 7.5 hours talking this script. I spent 7.5 hours speaking the script into a microphone. I've recorded it 3 different times. I used what I believe are the best takes, but clearly there's something that's not clicking for me. At some point, you just have to ship the product. Shipping this in its current form is an act of spiritual defiance. I'm someone who very much desires perfection in everything I do. This is going to be an exception, because if I continue to strive for perfection, I would be reading this script into a microphone for at least the next 10 years. That's clearly an exaggeration. That's some hyperbole, but I do mean that in a very real way. If I just kept tweaking this, I would keep tweaking it until functional eternity. And functional eternity may as well be next week, or it may as well be 30 years from now, you know? And I'm not willing to play that game. So I'm sending it out as is. Constructive feedback is welcome. I've now been talking for 5.5 minutes. I haven't even touched the notes. That's right, I made notes for this epilogue. First note on here. This took 2 months to make. I want to make that super clear. This was 2 months to make. I knew nothing. I work a full-time job, 45 to 50 hours a week, doing something that is a little more chaotic, a lot sillier, but it pays the bills, it keeps a roof over my head, and it provides insurance, most importantly. Living the American dream, as you will. In my spare time, in my downtime, whenever I haven't had other things to attend to in my life, things that are more important than making silly YouTube videos, that's for sure, I've taken time to work on this specific video. On and off, 2-ish months now. And over that time, while also working, I learned that this is a legit vocation, and people who do this for a living have enormous skill, assuming that the people who are also editing their own videos, which once you're high enough up on the ladder, I assume people no longer edit their own videos. They ship that off to an editor, an editing house, and they don't actually have to do any work. The editing was all the work. The script was a joy. I love writing. I loved writing that script. I loved recording the footage and getting to learn the technical side of that stuff. I absolutely deplored learning to edit, though I don't hate it so much now. At the beginning, it's just so overwhelming. I guess what ultimately I'm trying to say is, while having a job, while doing other things that are important in my life, finding time to make this, it still was doable in 2 months, and this is 2.5 hours long. And I think this is relatively meticulously edited, all things considered. There's an edit every few seconds. There are a few moments where I very intentionally do something lazy, like in the future segment. I intentionally just looped the Starfox Assault footage because I couldn't be asked to go find any more Starfox Assault footage. Like, it just wasn't happening. I don't own the game, that's all that's happening. And then in the technical segment, I started running the same clip backwards and forwards to show off how I learned to do that. That was definitely me being lazy. But most of these cuts are pretty meticulous and litigious in their discretion and their functionality. So if somebody's doing this for a full-time job, I genuinely believe in 2 months' time they should be able to put out 2.5 hours to 3 hours of better edited content than what I gave. There's no motion graphics in this, so if you're doing fancy stuff like that, I can see it extending the timeline. But there's no way in hell, under any circumstance, that someone whose full-time job is making YouTube videos should take longer than 2 months to produce 2 hours of content. Moving forward, 2.5 hours of content is not my goal. That's crazy, is what I've learned. That is too much. My rallying cry for these last few segments I've edited is 30 beautiful minutes. 30 beautiful minutes. That's the dream. I genuinely believe that if this video, if I could find it in me to make it shorter, and this one it just can't. I went in with the idea of it being long. But with future things, if I go in with the hypothesis that 30 beautiful minutes is possible, then 30 beautiful minutes will appear. So expect 30 beautiful minutes next time. So if you want to stick around and see what else I make, it's going to be 30 beautiful minutes. There will not be a long one for a while. Normally people ask you to like and subscribe at this stage. I'm not going to do that because I think that's fucking crazy and also really rude. Everyone watching this is a human person with real thoughts and feelings, and everybody interacts with this platform differently. For example, I only like videos that I think are timeless classics that I will want to watch in years because they're that good. And that could be a moral failing on my part. Instead of asking you to like and subscribe, which me saying that out loud feels fucking surreal, and I really hate it. I'm going to ask you to do something more important. I would absolutely love for you to pick up your phone and call somebody you care about and tell them that explicitly. Call them and say, hey, I care about you and I'm happier in my life, or I miss you, whatever it might be, whatever your situation is. If you, like me, hate making phone calls, well, I hate to break it to you, you, like me, are a coward. To succeed in this task, I need you to call them. But if you refuse, a text message is totally fine too. And that's okay. We can reckon with our cowardice together. I hate picking up the phone, but you really should in this instance. So call somebody you care about. If that's too big of an ask, text somebody and tell them you care about them. What else is there? Let me look at my notes. I wrote the medium as the message. That's like an idea in communication theory. When I was in school and thought I was going to be a communications boy, we learned about that. The medium is the message. And as y'all probably know, YouTube is not a medium full of messages. It's kind of a schlock factory, but not everything. Of course, you can always say not everything. YouTube primarily exists so people don't have to eat lonely dinners, and they don't have to know the absolute profound displeasure of a silent night's moment. You know, that's its primary purpose. So I can't be all hoity-toity, high and mighty with this sort of thing. I understand that this is a very accessible means of doing something creative, and I'm glad I had access to it. I'm glad that y'all are able to listen to it or watch it or do whatever you want to do with it. Yeah, that's about it. A lot of stuff got cut from this video. If I didn't make cuts early, and I made some cuts late, let me tell you, I did the conclusion and the intro last, and I was still making cuts. If I didn't make cuts, I think this thing would have hit 3 hours, or just shy of 3 hours. Right now, this epilogue is nearly 15 minutes long, which is stupid. I'm so sorry. We're going to have to watch a lot of credit sequences. I might find more fun footage, maybe put Subway Surfers in the corner. If you've been watching Subway Surfers or the equivalent in the corner of this video, you're welcome. I'm so sorry. Next time you see me, again, we're looking for 30 beautiful minutes. I have some ideas. I have some really big ideas, like bigger than this for sure. This was a single game. I have some like big ideas, which most certainly will cross the 3 or 4 hour mark if I see them through in the way that I'm envisioning. I do not have the patience for that. I want to do this on a semi-regular basis. I want the next one to come out within the next 2 months. So 30 beautiful minutes. It'll be a smaller idea. And then after a few small ideas, which I have a massive notes document with all sorts of ideas. After these smaller ones start popping off and I get better at honing my skills and doing the motion stuff, as far as motion graphics are concerned in the editing, then we'll look at some of these bigger ideas and then I can execute on those because I think it's going to be a lot of fun. In my original script, I ended with the line, "See you next time for a review of the Nelsonic Starfox watch." We're not ending with that, but I wanted you to know that existed regardless. That's something that I think is important. So look up Nelsonic Starfox watch. Again, please call somebody or text somebody you care about and tell them that you love them. Do what you will with your lives until we meet again. It's been me, it's been you, it's been Starfox Adventures, it's been a treat, it's been a ride. I'll be in the comments on this one, and maybe not in the future. We'll see how people respond. I anticipate, and put this on my tombstone, put this on my mama, and put this on God. I get 80 views. 80 views is what I'm thinking, which will make it my third most popular thing I've ever put on a social media platform. So 80 views is what I think I'm going to get. If I get over 100, it'll be time for celebration in my household. Oh, also fun note as I'm doing this, as I've finished editing the thing, I don't have a name for the YouTube channel. I've done this so far out of order. I have a video basically done, barring some minor edits, that at this point now is going to be 2 hours and 45 minutes long. And I don't have a name for the YouTube channel. That's not happening. Like after this, I'm going to figure out how to make a thumbnail, a good thumbnail. And then after that, I'm going to name the YouTube channel. So you already know what the name is. You have information that I don't have in real life right now. You can look and see what the name of the channel is. I have some ideas. I might have to put them in a random number generator and let it pick. Or maybe I'll come up with something better. Who knows? Again, okay, we're over 15 minutes. I've been rambling. I'm so sorry. It's me. It's you. It's Starfox. Call somebody you love. Tell them that. And then I will see you next time with 30 beautiful minutes. Hashtag 30 beautiful minutes. Are we still doing hashtags? 30 beautiful minutes. Starfox. I love you. Goodbye.